Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, check us out, Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Twitter, The Real Best Damn. Hold on, I got a little noise here in the background. Twitter, The Real Best Damn. And make sure to hit that like, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about tonight's show. I will be checking the live chat as well here on YouTube. Follow us on all the platforms. And if you get something out of tonight's broadcast, consider donating, supporting the channel. You can do that with the links in the description box down below, as well as in the chat, PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger Pay, or by joining us over on Patreon. We really got an interesting one tonight. We're going to be looking at the transhumanism agenda, and we're going to be taking a deep fucking dive. This is going to be a deep dive. When I was putting this one together, one thing that kept kind of like recurring in my mind is a lot of the things that we've been hearing lately, since Trump has now taken office again. He keeps mentioning this golden age, right? This return to the golden age. And we talked about this a little bit in last night's show, this Saturnian golden age and what all of that actually means. Well, tonight we're going to do a little bit more in-depth exploration of what that actually will entail. We're going to be talking about biotechnology, nanotechnology, 5G, 6G, AI, Elon Musk and his connections, the STARGATE project, and just all of it, guys. This is going to be really cool. And once you see it all kind of come together, I think you guys are going to be really happy with it and really glad that you tuned in. So let me go ahead and get the screen share. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, guys. I got to look around the camera here. And there we go. There we go. All right. So like I said, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Okay, here we go. Now we got the screen share going. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining me. It is a wild fucking time. That's all I can say about the age that we're in currently. Not to get too nerdy, with the astrology, but I've talked about this in the past. I know a lot of you guys think tarot and astrology is evil, and that's neither here nor there. That's on you. But you could really tell that we are shifting into the Aquarian age, because Aquarius is all about technology. It is all about the realignment of social structures, and it's more about the collective as opposed to the individual. It has a rebellious nature as well. And I feel like when you see the development and these leaps and bounds, and it's like this new industrialization of not just America but the world, but it's happening through robotics and through artificial intelligence and through neural networks and brain initiatives and quantum interfaces and all of this. It's like we're taking this fucking giant leap to an entirely new era of humanity. And I believe we're going to see new religions emerge, right? And we already have in so many ways. The transhumanist religion is now becoming a thing. And I feel like the global elite, they are absolutely on board with this transhumanist religion. I mean, you think about everything that they fucking do. It's all about, they drink blood, for Christ's sake, right? To try to avoid aging, because, allegedly in children and babies' blood and shit like that, it has antibodies and things like that that actually keep a person younger. That's why the Bible actually speaks against those things. And you see a lot of their injections, in celebrities and, people that are in the public spotlight, fetal tissue and stem cells and all of this. It's like now we're going from using like organic material to defy the aging, and that ritualistic kind of shit that we've seen, and in the past, that really cultish kind of dark shit that we've seen with child trafficking, human trafficking, organ harvesting, all of that. And we've covered all of this on this channel, by the way. And if you're not a member of like the private content and all of that, or you haven't donated and gotten your links for the private content, consider doing that. And you can see, you know, we've covered that in depth. Now it's going to, you know, genetic genome sequencing, biohacking, the ability to use our genetics against us, you know, like biogenetic warfare, the brain functions and brain monitoring. Even 6G has the ability to read our thoughts. I mean, it's just, it truly has become like a sci-fi fucking movie. I mean, it honestly has. So we're going to start off first with this clip here, and we're going to get it moving. So, and this is talking about the new AI religion. Hold on.
So if we understand religion in general as a story about authority, then in the 21st century, we will have a new dataist religion or a new algorithmic religion, which will tell people the source of authority is algorithms, is big data algorithms. If you have a big question in life or a small question in life, the source of authority is the big data algorithms.
So actually you're saying that the ones who are owning the data or have access to the data are...
Listen to this right here.
The new priests, the new kings, the new gods, whatever you want to...
He's saying, so you're saying the ones that own the data are the new priests? He's like, no. The new priests, the new kings, the new gods.
To call it, yes. In the 21st century, the most important asset will be data. People will lose control of their lives. It will be much easier to manipulate people. The very meaning of human life is likely to change. How does a human life look like when all the important decisions are taken by Google? It just says, Google, what should I do? You know me better. So it could be a much more convenient and easy life for Hamlet if it just allows Google to take the decision for him. But what kind of life is it? We don't know.
The most interesting place today in the world, in religious terms, is Silicon Valley. It's not the Middle East. This is where the new religions are being created now by people like Ray Kurzweil. And these are the religions that will take over the world. These are the religions that will take over the world.
These are the religions that will take over the world, right? And you can see, and now let's kind of go. Now we're going to give you a little taste of what's actually taking place in real time, right? Before we jump into some of this stuff. This was released by the White House today. Okay, this is about 9 hours ago. And it says literally, I shit you not, we're going to talk about where the golden age originates from. We'll get into the spiritual aspect of this after we cover, you know, a lot of the technology aspect of all of this. So like, stick with me. I mean, I promise you tonight will be good once it's all put together. So our golden age has just begun. This is from the White House.
It is my honor to introduce to you the 45th and the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
In America, the impossible is what we do best. There's nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. We will restore America's promise and we will rebuild the nation that we love. We will stand bravely, dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours and our golden age has just begun.
Our golden age has just begun. The golden age has just begun. Now, with that in mind, now as we're gonna kind of navigate all of this as we move forward here, I just kind of want you to hang with me. I'm going to give you a little piece by piece, feed you a little piece at a time, and you're going to see where all of this starts to culminate and kind of come together. You can see the direction that we're going. I've got documents and everything to go over. Elon Musk now proposing his brain chip as a solution to the vast majority of diseases and brain issues. Remember, he was the largest donor of the Trump campaign. He's now bought Twitter. He's named it X. And we know that when he owned PayPal, that it was formerly known as X. X has that Saturnian connotation as well, right? X represents like planet X. X is the hex, right? Or the cross, right? The planet of the crossing or the transitional planet. Every time the ages end, this dark twin of the sun is allegedly brought into the orbit of, and not to get too far out there with, different schools of thought, but there is allegedly a dark twin of our sun that comes in and creates this conscious transition for mankind every 3,600 years or so. As these ages end during the precession of the equinox, and it culminates in chaos, destruction, right? And this is what created the deluge or the great flood at the beginning of the Piscean age, which was an age of water, right? And now we're seeing this representation of the X once again as he's bought Twitter, right? Supposed to be for free speech. But we're seeing now that Trump's entire regime has built up a whole gambit of power, right? This isn't the 2016 Trump, guys, right? Where it appeared as if the media, was besting him every day and making him look small, and he appeared to be powerless against the globalists. No. This ain't red tie, blue tie Trump. This is purple tie Trump, right? And he's worn purple ties when he spoke to the World Economic Forum, as well as on his inauguration day. And remember, purple represents a color of royalty. Even Elon Musk declared the king is back. This is the return of Nebuchadnezzar. This is the return of King Cyrus, to get biblical. This is King Trump, right? This Antichrist type of archetypal figure that has now come in with an entire regime of powerful figures as well. We've seen the head of Google, Jeff Bezos. I mean, all of these guys, right? At his inauguration, all of Silicon Valley, the most powerful and the most richest men in the world aligned with him. This ain't 2016 Trump. And he's went from Operation Warp Speed, ushering in the vaccinations and all that shit back then, right? And we've seen the world drastically change at that point in time, to now ushering in the Stargate project with his co-pilot, Elon Musk.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should be able to solve any problem over time that that is a result of, like, if you think of the brain like a computer, effectively, like a circuit board or something like that, you can say, like, if you were given a circuit board and there were some short circuits or some circuits that should be there but aren't there, if there's any missing, if there are any circuits that shouldn't be there, and some that are there but shouldn't, we can fix those. So basically, if it's kind of like fixing a circuit board. Now, if the circuit board is all melted, okay, it's going to be hard to fix a melted circuit board. You can fix the circuit board with a few issues, but you can't fix it if it's been melted. But the vast majority of diseases or issues, brain issues, I think are fixable with a Neuralink device. It's a fine-grained means of reading and writing electrical signals in the brain at a very with high precision, and so that means, like, if there's, say, an electrical storm, some kind of epilepsy or something, you can interrupt that storm. You can, there's, like, if you can say, like, if there are a set of signals to read, like in the case of blindness, if somebody's lost their optic nerve or both eyes, you can still stimulate the visual cortex, even with if the if they lost both eyes so basically anything that is a function of signals in or out, if that is the nature of the problem, it can be fixed ultimately with a Neuralink device.
And I just want to kind of like, put this in your nugget for a second here. A lot of people had speculated with the Neuralink and his neural lace device and, what this would kind of mean, and we can now see not only is this on the agenda, this is on the docket to be implemented, right? And this is now being, propaganda. It's being propagated as this end all beat all fix to all, problems, when it's incoming or outgoing signal problem for the brain, right? When we see the direction of what is going with the Stargate project, you're going to see just how fucking in line all of this seems to be leading us to what I would believe, or I would surmise as what one could interpret as the mark of the beast, right? And just kind of like using like COVID and the jabs and the graphene oxide and nanoparticulates and all of that was along with that, right? And I got to be careful on how I like word this because we are on a public platform still. It's kind of laid the groundwork or set up the foundation for where we are today and where we're going. This is like taking shit to the next level. It's like Operation Warp Speed, punch the gas on forcing, mandating us into this transhumanist technological advancement, right? With Bill Gates and all these billionaire boys club, right? Putting their little 2 cents in, every one of them adding a little something extra into the pot. And it's like, now we see Trump coming back in, in this Stargate project, really aligning to kind of like bring it all together. So I'm going to show you here. This is the MrNA. Let me see if I can find this real fast. One moment. It's a video, so give me just a second. I think it's this one here.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things.
Okay, and this is for the Stargate project right here. So, and this is what I'm talking about. This is them setting it up, and you see neural lace being set up as, this cure for all these different brain functions, epilepsy, and whatnot. Now you're going to see the MrNA, which is messenger RNA. It has the ability to send messages to our genetics, right? And in yesterday's episode, we talked about how, they're now warning you, the military is warning you against, this genomic sequencing and giving people accessibility to your DNA, but yet the government wants it.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do it using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor,
which the government's warning you against,
vaccinate the person, design,
which they're also warning you against. It's Alberta. What did we showed you yesterday? It was out of Alberta. It was like a commission or a committee that had come together, and they're also warning you against the jab too. So it's like they're saying, don't do that anymore. Right. And then the military, our government, is warning you against the genetic sequencing. So, which both are being mentioned by Trump's big dog over here, right?
The vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
You have whiskey? No, but I do have vodka. There's a way to start this key. There's got to be a way to stop it, yeah. Turn it off.
And that's about how it feels. It's like, give me a shot. You know what I mean? Light up a joint, something, right? Because this shit is wild. And it really is Stranger Things too, honestly. You know, it truly is. And as we, and as we kind of see this shit continuously unfold, it only gets more and more bizarre. Honestly, it's like, I don't know how anyone. I'm sorry, man. I'm not sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry, but I just want to say, I am so hated by the left for the shit I post and say. People think I'm an alt-right wacko conspiracy theorist, but the right hates me just as much, if not more so, because of the shit I point out for Trump. Guys, if you haven't caught on by now, this is what is called controlled opposition, right? The best way to control the opposition is to lead it, right? That is what's happening here. You don't have a guy that has been absolutely funded by Zionists, for the entirety of his career. He went bankrupt and fucking Zionists bailed him out in the 90s, And he is literally, the motherfucker should have Israel tattooed on his forehead because he's that big of a, pro-Israel president. We've never seen a guy fly the Israel flag like this motherfucker has, and people still question all of his connections with the Jesuits, his Jesuit school. And it's like, people are like, the fact people still believe that he's going against the deep state. The fact that people still believe that he's not one of us or one of them and he's one of us, it's like, it's fucking mind blowing. Do you honestly think that a person has gotten to this level with this much power, with all of these powerful figures of Silicon Valley and all of this, right? These billionaire boys club aligned with him without being a member of the club? Honestly. And I mean, and I'm not talking to you from your little emotional state to where you can't think logically anymore because of the programming and mind control. I'm just saying, hey, let's cool out for a second, right? Just woos off for a moment. And let's think logically about what's happening here. 2016, you were told to trust the plan for 4 fucking years. Weren't you? That the arrests were coming. They were going to take down all the pedos and all of that. Did that ever happen? It didn't. What happened to the people that fell for that? All the Q-tards. Right? They got their asses smoked. They got shut down, censored, right? Seditious conspiracy. That they were in trouble. They went to jail or deplatformed at best. Right? January 6th, right? One of the biggest false events we've ever seen in the history of the United States. What happened is he was calling and telling you to come out to that event. He set you up for the loo, right? Thousands of people went to fucking jail. And yeah, he pardoned them when he come back into power, but it's just to flex his muscles and show how much power he has this time around. Matter of fact, I believe the motherfucker actually is the one who put Biden in office. I think there was a coup d'etat back in 2016 and the military took over our government then, right? With Trump at the head of this regime. And that Biden was just more of like a substitute president. I don't even believe the guy was truly in power. And if you've seen him during his press conferences and his speeches, a lot of times he'd be like, they said I could say this, or they said I could do this. He would be literally inferring that someone was telling him what he could and couldn't do. And he's the fucking president, right? Nothing suspicious there, right? Nothing suspicious there. And now this time around, you know, we've somehow bought into the idea once again because promises made and promises kept, and it all looks really good, right? It's being dressed up really good with the ban against federal censorship, you know, the censorship ban. I absolutely love that one. You know, that really helps a person like me. The national emergencies at the border and all of these things. But think about all the different national emergencies that have been declared already. You know, it's just because we were really in such a distraught state that he needed to declare all these emergencies. No fucking way. We've been operating just fine. Yeah, things have been shitty. Inflation has been incredibly high, you know, but nothing new, you know. These emergencies were declared so he could circumvent the constitutional process of things, the legislative process, and just be able to sign off on whatever the fuck he wanted and do it by declaring an emergency. You know, it's giving him absolute power. And people say, oh, he's just doing his job and da-da-da. Well, he may be doing his job, right? But anyone with unchecked power, you know, is someone that, you know, we should be asking questions about. Like, why is he doing that? Why is he taking such drastic measures? Why was he ready to come in like a ball of fucking fire and start declaring all these different emergencies? You know? And now you see where this is all going and the direction this is all going. By this integration of OpenAI and MrNA and all of this is showing you exactly which direction we're going. Who are those 17,000 doctors? RFK Jr. is not only unqualified to lead this essential agency, he's actively dangerous. 17,000 doctors call RFK Jr.'s actively dangerous to national health care. Well, sorry, it's not his best pictures, but we can tell that those 17,000 prominent docs are corrupt friends of Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum. I've actually got this article here. RFK Jr. is a danger to national health care and lacks the qualifications to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, more than 17,000 doctors said in a letter to U.S. senators. And I'll just be honest, I absolutely agree with this. RFK Jr. isn't a fucking doctor. You know, just because he's had it, you know, he's got the little throat problem and, you know, he's been injured by vaccines doesn't make him qualified to decide what's good for our health. The doctors are members of the Chicago-based Committee to Protect Healthcare, which represents 20,000 doctors and other medical professionals in the United States. It's like Bill Gates telling us about vaccines. It's like he's not qualified to do that either. So now RFK Jr. is qualified to, you know, run the healthcare. It's like, no, these guys are just politicians. The health and well-being of 336 million Americans depend on leadership at the HHS that prioritizes science, evidence-based medicine, and strengthening the integrity of our public health system. RFK Jr. is not only unqualified to lead this essential agency, Davidson continued, he is actively dangerous. Davidson and the 17,000 doctors supporting the letter urged senators to reject Trump's nomination of Kennedy as the HHS secretary, which won't happen. Nobody's going to challenge Trump. They have the House, Senate, all of it. The Republicans, you're going to see probably the cleanest 4 years of a presidency you've ever seen in your fucking life. Davidson and other doctors called Kennedy's nomination an affront to the principles of public health and said he has a well-documented history of spreading dangerous disinformation on vaccines and public health interventions. His views put millions of lives at risk, and his appointment is a direct threat to the safety of our patients and the public at large. Kennedy has criticized mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations and other vaccines and has been accused of spreading misinformation about vaccines and other healthcare practices. He has proposed ending the practice of adding fluoride to public water supplies and removing many food additives and preservatives from the nation's food supply, which I agree with all of this, by the way. So I just want to state that too. The COVID-19 shit, agree with the fluoride, agree with the food and water and all of this, the additives, preservatives, agree with. Our food is fucking illegal in 40 countries. Kennedy met with Democrat Party Senators Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, both of Massachusetts, to discuss their potential support or opposition to his nomination. Both senators have voiced their opposition to Kennedy's nomination. Kennedy also met with Senator John Cornyn, Republican out of Texas, to discuss his nomination, Politico reported. And Cornyn chairs the Senate Finance Committee, which must approve Kennedy's nomination before it goes before the full Senate for consideration. And you can guarantee he will approve that, right? He will approve that. Now, we got, and as we kind of move forward here, like I said, you're going to see. And what about this one, Gates? The quantum dot required for re-entry. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded skin implants, microneedle patches that deliver permanent quantum dots. And remember, these quantum dots are actually, I believe it's luciferase bioluminescence that allows the quantum dots to actually be read, which is basically Lucifer, the light bearer. To deliver these permanent quantum dots to verify vaccination status, the author of the Gates-funded study noted the quantum dot markings and this mark, right, of Lucifer, right, this mark of Lucifer, the quantum dot, think about that, the quantum dot can detect with adapted smartphones for use in real-world settings. Quantum dot implants would be used as biological vaccine passports, where their detection in human skin would be required to enter grocery stores, restaurants, gyms, and to travel. That's more than demonic. And think about that too, right? This is what the Bible talks about when it talks about the mark of the beast. It says that they would be able to neither buy nor sell, right, without bearing the mark. And this mark, this tattoo, right, it'd be on the right hand or their foreheads. And I just want to kind of state that the forehead to me is the pineal gland. Right. And we can kind of look at, different symbolism with that. And I've talked about this in the past before, but I'll kind of give a little refresher. But how the graphene oxide has these magnetic properties, right? And for one, the largest electromagnetic field of your body is generated by your heart. So the magnetism pump from your heart is one of the areas that the graphene oxide would go to from these jabs, right? And that 6-foot radius that the electromagnetic field generates. And we know that the social distancing was about the 6-foot radius as well, right? And then the magnetic pole of your body is your pineal gland, right? Which is your spiritual antenna. So this mark on the right hand, which the right hand, you put it over your heart, right? The right hand represents your heart, right? Like the right hand of the heart of God. It's like, okay, so the right hand represents your heart and your forehead represents your thoughts. So it's like your mind and your heart. So, or it can actually be a literal interpretation too of like your heart and that. So the jab, in my opinion, would be more akin to the mark of the beast. But if there is more to come of this mRNA shit, and we know there is because they're doing it with influenza, they're now doing it with cancer and everything else. So this messenger RNA that has the ability to alter our genetics, right? Which essentially turns us into robots, right? Walking biological robots. these quantum dots, the way that they're able to be detected by the scans of smartphones and smart devices is through luciferase bioluminescence, right? Which is Lucifer, the light bearer, is where that word derives from. So the quantum dot would be uses biological passports, right? Detection in skin. So this would be the mark that allowed people to buy or sell. And you can see here, this is the patent, National Library of Medicine, biocompatible near-infrared quantum dots delivered to the skin by microneedle patches record vaccination. And the abstract says, accurate medical record keeping is a major challenge in many low-resource settings where well-maintained centralized databases do not exist, contributing to 1.5 million vaccine-preventable deaths annually. Here, we present an approach to encode medical history on a patient using the spatial distribution of biocompatible near-infrared quantum dots in the dermis. Now, the quantum dots are invisible to the naked eye, yet detectable when exposed to the infrared light. Quantum dots with a copper indium selenide core, and copper equates to Venus, which is also Lucifer as well. Just saying, it's a conduit for electricity, energy. And aluminum doped zinc sulfide. And that aluminum, once again, if we kind of like, barium and aluminum, a lot of people equate that to bale, right? And the aluminum does frontal lobe damage, which causes Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, juvenile diabetes. And this is what you also find in a lot of the chemtrails, right? That are, being disseminated across the sky by the planes, for this Operation Solar Shield, also by Bill Gates. And we showed another patent from Bill Gates yesterday, the cryptocurrency system using body activity data, which is essentially, this cryptocurrency using a social credit scoring system based on our body activity, right? So this Internet of Bodies, right, with something like this quantum dot to be able to register the body activity data. And then a social credit scoring system to determine how much, worth you have, in the crypto, right? Based on your social credit score, right? And we can see all of this kind of happening, this whole digital ID and all of this. So with a copper, indium selenide core and aluminum doped zinc sulfide shell, we're tuned to emit the NIR spectrum by controlling stoichiometry and shelling time, the formulation showing the greatest resistance to photo bleaching after simulated sunlight exposure, the 5-year equivalence, through pigmented human skin, was encapsulated in microparticles for use in vivo. In parallel, microneedle geometry was optimized in silico and validated ex vivo using porcine and synthetic human skin. Quantum dot containing microparticles were then embedded in dissolvable microneedles and administered to rats with or without a vaccine. Longitudinal in vivo imaging using a smartphone adapted to detect NIR light demonstrated that microneedle delivered quantum dot patterns remained bright and could be accurately identified using machine learning algorithms 9 months after application. In addition, co-delivery with inactivated poliovirus vaccine produced neutralizing antibody titers above the threshold considered protective. These findings suggest that intradermal quantum dots can be used to reliably encode information and can be delivered with a vaccine, which may be particularly valuable in the developing world and can open up new avenues for decentralized data storage and biosensing. So, and the conflict of interest in the statement, competing interest, a patent application entitled Microneedle Tattoo Patches and Use Thereof, describing the approach presented here, was filed, and it gives you the conflict of interest that were actually created by the people who wrote this abstract. So, right. And you can see all the, and I'm going to drop this patent in the chat. I like to just give you guys access to what we're looking at here as well. That way you can go look it up yourself later. I do have the chat replay on for those of you guys that are interested in going back at the replay and looking at this. I'm going to look at some of these comments here real fast in the chat here. Ike remotely says bioquantum feedback devices. There was a salesman from my province in Canada who went across the whole world selling these things. Paula Hawk says Elon's supposed nanny said Elon would set the stage for the Antichrist. How interesting is that, right? Considering, right? So what else we have? And it's nice to see you guys too. So yeah, I mean, like, those are some interesting comments, right? I did not know that Elon Musk's nanny said he would set the stage for the Antichrist. I don't know what your school of thought on that or your belief is when it comes to the Antichrist, but the comparisons to King Cyrus, the comparisons to Nebuchadnezzar when it comes to Donald Trump, I think if there's any fucking candidate, and we're going to show some Nostradamus quatrains and all types of interesting shit tonight when it comes to the Saturnian Golden Age and Trump and all of this. It's going to be a lot of information tonight for people to kind of digest. So you might have to watch it, a couple times to get it all. But yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Moving forward here. BlackRock caught at it again. Why depopulation is a good thing. And thankfully, we have AI to do all your jobs.
I could argue in the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations. Okay, that's something that most people never talked about. We always used to think shrinking population is a cause for negative growth. But in my conversations with the leadership of these large developed countries that have xenophobic immigration policies, they don't allow anybody to come in, shrinking unemployment, shrinking demographics, these countries will rapidly develop robotics and AI and technology. And if the promise, I didn't say it's going to happen, but if the promise of all that transforms productivity, which most of us think it will, we'll be able to elevate the standard of living of countries and the standard of living of individuals, even with shrinking populations. And so the paradigm of negative population growth is going to be changing. And the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. And so for those countries that have rising populations, the answer will be education, and so rapidly develop. For those countries that do not have a foundation of rule of law or education, they're going to be left. That's where the divide's going to get more and more extreme. And unfortunately,
yeah. So you're hearing him say, BlackRock, and this is the World Economic Forum. There's been some absolute fucking dimes coming out of the World Economic Forum this time. I mean, there always is, but they're not hiding the shit anymore, guys. Like, the agenda is in plain sight. There is no mincing of words anymore. It's not just, back in the day, it was more of like, covert and, that hidden hand. And we've seen it, more or less like predictive programming and symbolism. And, you could kind of it had dual meanings. You could take things one way or another. Now there is no fucking mincing of words. There's no hiding the agenda. It is out in plain sight for all to see. They are not hiding what they're trying to do here. They're telling you flat out, right? And they're saying that, these countries that have these negative population growth, and think about it, a lot of the more developed countries across the world have negative populations now, right? Because sterility in men is 50%, right? In males, I believe now it's some crazy shit. More than a large population of females too. By the time they hit age 30, no longer have children, have chosen or elected not to have children or be married. We've seen, the attacks on the nuclear family, all of these different things, which is part of the 10-point plan of the New World Order, as written by Alice Bailey, right? Theosophist and occultist, in which we've also covered that in years past, discussing the 10-point plan of the New World Order and how, the state would raise the children, which is what we see now. People go to Head Start, Kindercare, all these different things before they even hit kindergarten. 3-4 years old, they're spending 5 days a week with the state, right? So the state is raising children now, not the parents. Mothers are no longer encouraged to embrace their, their maternal nature, their feminine nature, and they work. They're more they have more toxic masculinity a lot of time than men do, right? We have a lack of masculinity in our society now with all of the beta males and, shit that we see now. We have this confusion of the genders, confusion of the sex, the promotion of sexual promiscuity, the destruction of religions and destruction of principles and morals. And I mean, you can go on and on and on, right? Like the things that have been done to undermine the fabric of society, because see, the family unit is what actually holds society together. See, a lot of people don't believe that, but it's actually true, right? The family unit is what allows a society or a community to flourish and be productive and to grow and all of that. And when you take that away, you no longer have the male at home to provide and defend and protect the family from outsiders, intruders, these invasive, tactics of programming and propaganda that we see being pushed down our throat day in and day out by the liberal media and by the right-wing conservative media as well, to be fair, right? It's either one extreme or the other. It's either extreme liberalism to the form of Marxist communism or extreme conservatism to the form of like a fascist nationalist, ideology. So it's like either way you kind of look at it, even those that are even in the truth community, it's like they have become so conspiracy minded that they believe nothing is real, right? Nothing is real. They have no compass or direction when it comes to being able to decide on what's actually genuine and true, because they can't believe in anything. And I believe that this was, let's see if I can get the quote here. I don't want to pull it up and look like a dumbass. Let's see if we can pull this up. I'm trying to paraphrase it. Let's see if we can pull this up. Okay, here we go. And we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And that's William J. Casey, the CIA director. So there you have it. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And that is your CIA director that said that, right? So I'm just telling you, man, like they're right on track. And it's like even the people that consider themselves truthers or conspiracy minded, this is where they're at. They're spinning their wheels. They have no compass or, guidance. And with this, the mind control and the programming, especially the way that they use words, targeted words, neuro-linguistic programming by labeling people racist and xenophobes and bigots and anti-Semitic and, all of these different, transphobes and basically any derogatory term, because neuro-linguistic programming ascribes a negative connotation, right? It has a negative connotation to a word, right? That way, whenever you hear the word, it automatically invokes a negative emotional response. That way you dismiss the person that's being labeled with that. It's a character assassination is what it is, to try to undermine and discredit those who are speaking against the agenda, right? And people have used a lot of these words against me, whether they call me a fucking junkie, a psycho, a fucking schizophrenic. I mean, a million things have been called to me, xenophobe, a homophobe, right? racist, bigot, whatever, transphobe. I mean, you know, and not all of those have been applied to me, but to all of us, right? And these words are used intentionally because they have that negative connotation. It's neuro-linguistic programming. And remember, neuro-linguistic programming, it's a practitioner that actually uses these things. So it is, in essence, it is a wizard, an occultist that has the ability to use word magic on people with these things to put it in the collective conscious to sway public opinion just by the use of certain words and phrases, right? And we see this through the disinformation and misinformation campaigns, right? Because these psyops that are running, these are long-term psychological warfare operations that are designed to completely change and sway public opinion. And not just that, public perception, right? In the way that we perceive reality as a whole, right? So, and kind of like moving forward here, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, and it's funny how depopulation plans never seem to include the people writing the plans. And isn't that the fucking truth, right? Remember when the CDC decided they needed to prepare for a zombie pandemic? Here's the front page of the document. I actually have the document here. I pulled it up. And very eerie. And see, and this is from the Center of Disease Control. The Preparedness 101 of the zombie pandemic. We're just going to go through the comic strip here real quick and just kind of show you how close we are to all of this. I get to pick the next movie. That one's going to give me nightmares. Oh, you're such a baby. It wasn't that scary. You know, that kind of stuff would never really happen. Isn't this what people say? This shit would never really happen. Well, I'm going to try and get some sleep. Don't stay up too late. All right. Max and I will be on the lookout for the boogeyman. Ha ha ha. Very funny. Stay tuned for Channel News Nightly News. In other news, several people have been hospitalized after a strange virus began spreading rapidly throughout the Southeast. Huh? Scientists haven't yet identified the virus, but symptoms include slow movement, slurred speech, and violent tendencies. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention is recommending that people distance themselves from anyone displaying these symptoms. They are also recommending families and others gather emergency supplies and make plans in case they are asked to evacuate. You can get more information on emergency.cdc.gov. Emergency supplies, evacuation. What's going on, Max? Let's check the internet. A zombie virus? This does not look good. Let's check the CDC site. An emergency preparedness kit? I better print this out. Let's see what we can gather up. Next, the pair go down to the basement. Man, I forgot I had this. It used to be my dad's. He was always listening to the weather report when storms came through. Guess we'll add it to the supplies. And it looks like we almost got everything. Water, food, radio, flashlight. And oh yeah, buddy, I guess I need to add some of your stuff too. Well, that should do it. Let's see if there have been any new developments. Wow, it looks like they're everywhere. Maybe we should take a break from the horror movies. I'm acting like Julie, jumping at every little noise. And sure enough, you can see what the racket's all about. The cat, Miss Clements, and she's a fucking zombie. You don't look so good. Maybe you should lie down. And the neighbor turns into a zombie. Right? And I want to get to this one part here, just to kind of show you a little bit of the predictive programming that we see in here. Here we go, right here. And this is and we'll kind of end it here. I'll leave you guys. I'm going to give you guys this in the chat too, if you want to go read this yourself on your own time. I'm not going to do the whole thing here. But right here. Quarantine efforts here in quarantine in Raleigh haven't done much to contain the spread of the virus. Over half the city is now infected, and new cases are showing up throughout the Southeast. Back to you in the studio, Samantha. This is a very grave and dangerous situation. The governor has declared a state of emergency, and the National Guard And the governor is urging everyone who is not showing symptoms to stay in their homes and to keep their doors locked. Remember the deployment of the National Guard, the declaration of the state of the emergency, the quarantine, people being ordered in their homes. The CDC is working with local health departments on a vaccine. Until then, bunker down and don't go outside unless you have to. And right here, warnings have been issued for dozens of counties about staying inside and area hospitals being overrun. Is this sounding any bit familiar? Right? And where's the next one? They tell you where the virus actually coming from in just a moment. You see the CDC here. This is where all the CDC coffins came from, right? They don't know where the source of it comes from. And here we go. It appears to be a highly mutated form of the flu. They've labeled it Z5N1. You know, how interesting is that? This mutated form of the flu, right? It's like you can't make this shit up. And even so, the health department is sending on money. They've managed to map the virus's DNA, right? You know, they're adding in the genetics and all of this. It's like, really, guys, you know, they're telegraphing exactly. You know, we've used the same type of vaccine that we use for the seasonal flu. It's been modeling the vaccine on how it works once it enters the bloodstream. And soon we'll be able to distribute this vaccine. You see what I mean? Right? It's very, very familiar. You know, very familiar. They're stockpiling it. They're getting troops on the ground, strategic national stockpile, all of it. All of it. You know, very familiar. In case you don't remember what actually happened, right? The last time around. So I find it very interesting that they're bringing this back up, considering Bill Gates said we're due for another, right? Which, you know, he's a sack of dog shit, and you know we know why he said we were due for the first one. He made a lot of money off of that, you know. Honestly, when analyzing the current state of affairs, we are getting there closer and closer. Whoops! Trump's border czar Tom Homan clarifies the mission accomplished for White House will be reducing illegal alien crime, not the mass deportation of millions of illegals. He further stresses that the deporting all illegal aliens is an unrealistic goal. Man, oh man.
So what should people do who are seeking asylum? How do you do it?
Go to the embassy, go to port of entry. Do it the legal way. You shouldn't come to this country and ask to get asylum, and the first thing you do is break our laws by entering illegal.
So tell me what the definition of success is over the next 6 months, over the next year, by the end of the administration. What is mission accomplished here?
Taking as many public safety threats off the street as possible. Watching illegal alien crimes in the United States decrease. Ending it. Deporting every illegal alien gang member in this country, including Trendawa and MS-13. Making our country safe. When we see the crime rate from illegal aliens go down, that's a success. Every public safety threat we remove from this country is success. Every national security threat that we find removed from the country is success. There's no number on it. So my success can be based on what Congress gives us. More money, the better we're going to do.
I noticed you didn't put in that list of things that will be mission accomplished and success, getting every immigrant who is in the country illegally out. Why not?
Because I'm being realistic. We can do what we can with the money we have. We're going to try to be efficient, but with more money we have, the more we can accomplish. If I don't have the money to remove that millions of people, I'm not going to sit here and one thing, no one can say I haven't been frank in everything I've said. Our success every day is taking a public safety threat off the streets or getting a national security threat out of here.
And our thanks to Tom Homan.
Which could mean whatever they want it to mean, you know, national security threat, you know. You could really see this easily turning into quite a bit of different things, you know. having the ability to really like look at anybody's, you know, identification and, you know, where they're coming from, and just bringing in more monitoring and surveillance and all of this, right? I don't think it's always about illegals. Your DNA will be your data. And we see here, DNA will be your data. Where's that? This is the wrong one. Hold on, it's over here. Is DNA the future of computer storage? Humans created just under 100 trillion gigabytes of data, and that volume will nearly double again by 2025. With this, the pressure to find innovative ways of storing is growing because traditional methods are bursting at the seams. But to some scientists, the best answer has existed for billions of years. DNA. If it can store genetic code, can it also store the world's digital information? Synthetic DNA has the potential to store orders of magnitude more data than today's devices, and in a manner that promises to be much more sustainable, says Karen Strauss, Senior Principal Researcher Manager at Microsoft Research and Affiliate Professor at the University of Washington School of Computer Science and Engineering. And of course, she's with Microsoft. Strauss has led research in emerging memory technologies, which have drawn increasing interest as global data volumes have mushroomed. Media that once existed physically now predominantly exists digitally. The world is being photographed from space like never before. Businesses are increasingly operating on cloud platforms. Scientists are amassing massive research data sets, and the billions of connected devices and sensors that make up the Internet of Things are forecast to contribute nearly 80 zettabytes, meaning 80 trillion gigabytes by 2025. And it's not just the Internet of Things, it's the Internet of Bodies, right? When we look into the DNA being used for storage, to be all the way real with you. And that's where everything appears to be going. There's a particular question over where to store archival data, information that is inadequately accessed, infrequently accessed again after creation. Companies are incentivized to store rather than junk this kind of information. Partly that's because the public doesn't expect data to disappear. But a more significant driver is the rise of artificial intelligence and analytics. The more data you have and the higher quality it is, the more powerful your algorithms can be. And remember, you know, algorithms being the new God, right? As we see in the first video. There are various conventional ways to approach this problem. Tape drives consume minimal energy, but accessing the data is slow and preserving it is costly. Solid state and hard disk drives are an appealing alternative because of their low access latency, allowing for prompt retrieval of specific data from storage. But because of these storage mediums have finite lifespans, they require the periodic transfer of data to newer storage media. This recurrent data migration process contributes significantly to environmental waste, as both hard drives and tapes are typically destroyed after use. Solid state and hard drives also require continuous power to maintain their storage and retrieval functions. Significant portions of today's archival data is stored in a vast data centers packed with them. Not only does this take up a great deal of physical space, but they also produce vast amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. And still, we can't build them quickly enough. The capacity of existing storage media is not keeping up with the ever-growing demand for data storage, says Strauss. This has ignited a search for more efficient storage medium, particularly for archival cloud storage. The idea of stashing digital information on synthetic strands of DNA has existed since the 1960s, inspired by the fact that DNA itself is a storage system. It is made up of chemical building blocks called nucleotides, each of which is composed of a sugar group, a phosphate group, and one of 4 nitrogen bases. Each of these nitrogen bases is identified by letters: A, adenine, T, thymine, G, guanine, and C, cytosine. And in order to sequence these nitrogen bases, that determines the biological messages in any strand of DNA. Digital information exists as binary code, and DNA storage works by translating its zeros and ones into sequences of those 4 letters. For instance, 00 might equal A, or 1 0 might equal G. Synthetic DNA can then be produced, which contains that sequence. This DNA can be stored and, at a later stage, decoded into text, say, or video. The appeal is that DNA can store massive quantities of information at a high storage density, around 1 exabyte, which is 1 billion gigabytes per cubic inch. DNA is also durable. It can last tens of thousands of years, and it doesn't consume vast amounts of energy. Quote, it would take billions of tape drives, the current DenSat commercial storage media, to store tens of zettabytes of information, says Strauss, whereas it would take the footprint of one small refrigerator if stored in synthetic DNA. Research into the idea has exploded in recent years. Various companies are developing the technology, some working on synthesizing or reading DNA, others on translating binary code into the DNA alphabet. In 2020, Microsoft co-founded the DNA Data Storage Alliance. Of course they did. Bringing together 41 organizations with the twin aims of realizing the potential of DNA storage and recommending the creation of specifications and standards to aid interoperability. And there have been proofs of concept. Scientists have already encoded books into DNA. And recently, a startup released a credit card-sized device that can store a kilobyte in DNA form. For businesses, the potential rewards are significant. The global data storage market size was valued at $217.2 billion in 2022 and is projected to reach $777.98 billion by 2030. The emerging DNA storage market will hit $3.34 billion by 2030, according to one recent report. DNA storage is not going to replace traditional data centers, especially as that data is required quickly, but eventually it might enable archival data to be stored in greener, more compact data centers, which produce minimal waste and carbon emissions. In these centers, files will be encoded and synthesized and then stored in capsules. To read them, a robotic arm will remove a capsule, read its contents, and place it back. And dude, think about this. Think about what doesn't it almost, and I just want to, it kind of reminds me, the Yahweh, the YHWH, or, Yod Hey, Bod Hey, right? Hands nailed, feet nailed, all of that, the tetragrammaton, right? And they say that in Aramaic or Arabic, if you translate it, it actually goes from that to AUAI, right? Which AU in the periodic table represents gold, and then AI is artificial intelligence, right? And just kind of hear me out. AU, gold, and in spiritual and esoteric terms, gold represents spirit, right? Soul force, spirit, or the heavens. And then AI. So it's like the merging this God, right? Yod He, Bod He, or Yahweh, right? Jehovah. This God being the combination of artificial intelligence and spirit, right? And when we look at these epics looking back to the Anunnaki, those from the heavens came, and all of this, you see them having their wristwatches on, a lot of descriptions of them not only having these chimeric type of appearances being mixed with animals, but also being mixed with machine, right? That these are their technology, right? They had a vast capability when it comes to technological advancement. And when we look at all over the world, what we see within these pyramidal structures, right? Like the Great Pyramids of Giza and Tiwanaku, and just, you guys know all the ancient sites here. these pyramidal structures, the four-sided pyramid is ideal for the use of manipulation of ferrofluid, which is magnetism, right? So the manipulation of magnetism, and as well as during this age, the prominent use of copper, which is a conduit for electricity. And a lot of these, including the Great Pyramid, was built as what appeared to be power factories, right? For hydrogen, which is water, right? We are 80% water. The planet is 80% water. So these factories that were in essence conduits for magnetism and electricity, and we live in an electromagnetic reality. We are electromagnetic beings in the manipulation of water, right? And then when we look at the things such as like the Vimanas and the Buddhist temples and all of the different temples over in the Middle East, and they have this staggered type of conical shapes on the top of them, which I'll show you guys a few images while we're looking at it here. Right here. Right. Just trying to look at some of these temples here, right here. These are the same exact shapes on the inside of these structures that you see on the conical tips of stealth fighter jets for the radar for stealth fighter jets. Same exact matching shape, right? So I find that to be interesting. And like I said, on the pyramids as well. See, all over the world, the step pyramids and all of this, they're all the same. See, it's this four-sided pyramidal structure, right? As well as this conical shape on the top of these cathedrals and all of this, right? And these temples. These are conduits for frequency is what they are, right? Conduits for frequency, which lets us know, and these were allegedly built by the gods, right? And the gods being the most ancient of the gods being the Sumerians, right? Or the Anunnaki, right? These, and I'll show you just kind of a depiction, and not to get too off topic here, but I believe that these gods were AI gods, right? And you can see, right? They literally have technology, right? They're using technology. They have wristwatches on, you know what I mean? Matter of fact, you look out even at the Vatican. See? The sphere, right? This is some type of like gyro fucking, you know, dynamo oscillator. Who fucking knows? But it's like, right? It's definitely some type of machinery as well, right? See all the gears and shit like that on the inside of this, right? They have the pine cone as well out in front of the Vatican. You know, so it does appear as if these ancient gods were using forms of technology that we're now just kind of coming back around to. We can even see depictions of what appears to be, you know, very similar things to the Large Hadron Collider, right? And technology that we're just now rediscovering. Like I said, stealth fighter jets, all of this, guys. So, you know, you can take it or leave it. You can believe what you want to see. Believe what you want to believe, and you can also see here what appears to be DNA too, right? DNA. So this use of DNA, and if we look at Enki's World Order, or otherwise known as the Lost Book of Enki, they actually talk about, and Enki is another translation, these two brothers, these two creator brothers, and there's always a story of the two brothers of creation. One having the Lucifer archetype and the other having the Satan archetype, the two gods in the garden, so on and so forth, right? The one that's like, surely you know, you won't die. eaten from the tree of knowledge and the one who tells them not to eat from the tree of knowledge. That would be Enki and Enlil also. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca, being the Mayan ones. Paganhoya and Palangatahoya being the ones from the Hopi prophecy. I could go on and on and on showing you these two different brothers, right? And even, you know, the archetype of Christ and Satan, right? Which is Lucifer and Satan, in my opinion, right? Prometheus and Zeus and so on and so forth, Jupiter, Saturn, right? But you can see, right, like the genetics also being shown. And in this epic or this tale, they describe humanity being a genetically altered race, right? That, and I have the text. I'll pull it up towards the end and kind of read some of the text. I don't want to get into that and get too far off the topic, but, you know, they describe how, you know, they genetically manipulated the hominid species that was already on the planet. And you guys remember I had a guest named Gary Parker who had shown there was this weird vibration in the sands of the Great Pyramid 10 years after 2012. You guys remember after the summer solstice of 2012, 10 years later, this weird kind of three-dimensional vibration in the sand. It's one of my most favorite guests I've ever had. One of my favorite podcasts I've done. It's on the backup channel, and it's also in on Patreon. It showed this story that had vibrated in the sands of the Great Pyramid, and the pyramid looking like a giant alien head, one of the Anunnaki, as well as showing this story of like a comet hitting this monkey species being mixed with the gods, and, you know, and it kind of just backed up what the, you know, the tales of the Sumerians were actually telling us, right? And even when we look in the book of Genesis, and I've pointed this out in the past, that the book of Genesis, when it talks about the earth being void and without shape, and I'll show you this really fast, what's actually being described, and this is my opinion, sorry, what's actually being described, oops, okay, yeah. So what's actually being described here, book of Genesis, and you see the Nephilim and the earth in those days. Nephilim representing bully or tyrant. These are the gods, right? The ones who actually fell, right? They were on the earth in those days, and after this, when the sons of God, meaning the B'nai, which were possessive, or a son, right? Possessed, Banim, B'nai, afflicted. They would sleep with the daughters of humankind, right? The daughters of humankind, which is in essence Adam, right? The human being. So these gods were mating with the human beings, the mighty ones, the heroes of old, the Gibborim, Nephilim. These were the powerful warrior gods, right? Which we would know as the Anunnaki. And we know that even further back when it talks about in Genesis, I think it's 1, just to kind of show you. Here we go. Yeah. Now the earth was without shape, desolate, a worthless thing, right? An empty place without form. And it was empty. It's an indistinguishable ruin and darkness, meaning destruction. So when we were created in this epic of creation, there was already a destruction that had taken place, according to Genesis 1. The earth was in ruin and destruction. After this ruin and destruction, then the gods were mating with mankind. So this goes more in line with the tale of the Anunnaki, right? Them actually conquering the human race by sending a deluge or a flood or the evil wind, which I believe is like a nuclear bomb or something like that, creating destruction, wiping out the original humans, right? The ones that walked with the gods, allegedly, because of their wickedness. And then these fallen angels, meaning those from the heavens came, who are now on earth, right? Aliens, extraterrestrials, interdimensional entities, whatever you want to call them, right? Were then genetically modifying, creating offspring with humankind after this destruction and desolation. So, you know, what we're seeing described here is not the beginning of time. This isn't the beginning of time. If it was, you know, it would be without shape and void, but no, it says it was an indistinguishable ruin, right? Ruin means something that already existed. Indistinguishable ruin and destruction, right? So something that was destroyed and in ruins, right? Meaning, you know, we know that the gods, you know, they ordered the great deluge, right? And the flood. And this began that age of Pisces, right? And then we get into the, you know, Genesis 6 conspiracy, where we have the gods actually multiplying with the daughters of men, which is humankind. Okay. So it looks like there was this, and you can see, right, you know, with the genetics, the technology. So it's like we came from some type of technologically advanced, artificially intelligent race. And we ourselves may even be a form of AI. A lot of people even believe that. So now we are like rediscovering all of this technology. And remember, you know, all of these gods promised to return one day. And now we're hearing things like Trump saying, you know, the golden age, right? And allegedly, when the gods were here in the past, that was the golden age, right? And now these gods promise to return. Now we're talking about the golden age once again. And it just so happens to be as we're going into this, you know, this transhumanist agenda. So I'm just saying. And now moving forward, just wanted to put that out there. Interesting. The Pentagon has issued a 10-day social media pause beginning January 25th. In order to refocus communications for the Department of Defense around the Commander-in-Chief's priority of reorienting the department around its core mission of keeping America safe, fielding the most lethal force on the planet, and fighting and winning wars. All DoD components will adhere to the following temporary social media guidance. Social media posts from the official accounts at all levels of the department are temporarily suspended for 10 days, effective January 25th, 2025, in order for the DoD components to prepare for the reorientation of content on their platforms. I just find this to be weird wording, too. This reorienting of the Department of Defense and like this relaunch here. The suspension does not apply to social media communication concerning DoD's current operations defending our southern border. In fact, this is a top priority for the department. In addition, I recognize the duty and responsibility of military installation commanders to inform service members, military families, veterans, base partners, and visitors about base activities and services. Therefore, this guidance also does not apply for normal installation base operations and activities, including customer-focused content such as base conditions, activities, and services, DoD education activities, school activities, operations and notifications, morale, welfare, and recreation, and commissary operations and activities, and recruiting-related activities. Nothing in this memo should be interpreted as disrupting or ceasing normal installation base operations and activities. In accordance with DoD Instructions 5400.17, official use of social media for public affairs purposes, August 12, 2022, as amended, social media account managers for institutional or individual accounts will follow record management procedures and account transition procedures as a new administration officials assume their position. Interesting. And meanwhile, the Trump administration is negotiating the deal to place TikTok under the control of Oracle, and U.S. investors under this plan, ByteDance, TikTok's China-based owner, would retain a minority stake. While Oracle would oversee algorithms, data, and updates, this aims to minimize Chinese influence and address national security concerns. Microsoft may join as a potential investor while Congress remains a critical hurdle. And of course, Microsoft would get involved in this. It's like we see Microsoft involved in every bit of this. And what this actually boils down to is the United States wanting control of the data instead of China, you know, just to keep it all the way real. And are they testing algorithm changes, more censorship ahead? Mirror bacteria. Labs creating mirrored life may accidentally doom us all.
Hello, wonderful person. This is Anton. And today we're going to discuss a somewhat unusual, but also somewhat unnerving report that basically talks about potential dangers for what's known as mirror life, or specifically mirror bacteria. And though, as I described this to you, it might sound like some kind of a science fiction scenario, turns out that
Everything
this
sounded like
could actually
sci-fi
be an
in this video.
extremely dangerous phenomenon for the future of the planet, and something that a lot of scientists are now officially warning about. And here we're actually talking about something that would be a new extinction event if this ever became real. And so let's discuss this in more detail, but I guess let's start with the basics of biology first. Let's talk about chirality. And chirality is a topic you might remember from basic biology. The idea that things tend to come in two different shapes, either left-handed or right-handed. So basically, it's a type of an asymmetry that actually applies to a lot of different sciences, with the most famous example usually used in various biological and chemical classes basically being our hands. Both are a type of a mirror image. But this idea of handedness is particularly important in organic chemistry. And that's because mirror molecules usually form in equal amounts, but can actually have extremely different effects and functions depending on what they are. And today we have certain examples that are pretty well known. And one of the most famous examples is the molecule known as carbon, a molecule that a lot of university classes very often use as an example to prove this point. Carbon also comes as either left-handed or right-handed, and depending on the handedness, it can either smell like spearmint or a type of a seed known as caraway. In other words, the mirror molecules in this case react differently inside our nose. They attach to different sense receptors, making them smell differently depending on the handedness. And though this is a really simple example, some examples are a little bit more extreme. And it doesn't get more extreme than thalidomide, an extremely powerful drug that was prescribed many years ago as a treatment to morning sickness. And it actually does work really well. Turns out though, thalidomide, which also exists in two forms, in one of its forms can cause devastating birth effects, which unfortunately was not known until it started to cause these effects, affecting a lot of pregnant women and their children over the years. And so examples like thalidomide show us how extreme this can get and how in some cases handedness can be very dangerous. But also shows us that this is something we can physically create and something that we can physically control. And while in the last decade, and especially in the last few years, this idea of generating mirror molecules, and specifically mirror peptides, has actually become even more popular. Here's one such paper from just a year ago, in January of 2024, that sequenced a mirror image of a very large ribosomal protein, with the technique in this case, in theory, potentially useful for a lot of medical reasons. Here's the example from this study. And so basically by creating a mirror image of a protein, it might become possible to create something that can actually function as some kind of a medicine, or something that can destroy viruses and bacteria in our body without being...
And think about that too, like the different peptides that you see now that have been created, digestive peptides and shit for weight loss and all that, that shit has become extremely prominent.
Being detected by our immune systems, thus allowing it to function much longer. In other words, it becomes possible to create a protein that our body does not detect and does not destroy, but can actually still be therapeutic. And a lot of this started back in 2016 when the Harvard scientist George Church created a mirror version of a DNA polymerase. So this is actually a relatively recent idea, but the idea that was based entirely on curiosity and essentially seeing if we can even make this happen. However, because this field advanced really quickly, now the same scientists, and actually a lot of other scientists, 38 to be specific, published this technical report warning everyone that this can lead to something extremely dangerous. And mostly because of studies like this, that take this to a completely new level, mixing synthetic cell engineering and nanotechnology in order to combine a lot of these mirror proteins and potentially create mirror life, or at least mirror bacteria. Now, we've actually discussed a lot of these synthetic bacteria in some of the previous videos you can find in the description, but in the last few years, researchers have already been super successful at basically creating synthetic bacteria through extremely thorough genetic modification. This idea of synthetic biology that began in the 80s has now become very effective and has also become a very active field. But now some scientists are thinking of combining these fields, which would basically result in mirror bacteria or synthetic life that mirrors natural life. Or just to rephrase this, life that would be formed from mirror molecules and mirror proteins. Although here it's really important to understand something about life that we see around us. That's of course including you and me. All of the amino acids inside of us, all of the building blocks of proteins, are left-handed, while all of the sugars are right-handed. As a matter of fact, DNA is also right-handed as well. Now, we don't actually know exactly why this is so, and this is one of the biggest mysteries in nature and in biology, but there have been some propositions trying to explain this, including one involving cosmic rays. The video in the description talks about this more. And so this selective chirality is super important for a lot of living systems, mostly because it's a defining feature of the entire biosphere, and all of the chemical reactions inside of us depend on this handedness. But what if suddenly we have a bunch of bacteria or a bunch of viruses made entirely out of left-handed DNA, which would now be basically a mirror image? And while we know that technically building these mirror biological molecules is already achievable, a lot of mirror enzymes have been created over the years, and a lot of them for various medical reasons. But the studies like this that essentially is trying to build the entire bacteria from the ground up.
And how interesting is it? We just continue to see this like recurring theme with the nanobiotechnology, right? And this modification of human life, our genetics, and all of this here on Earth. And it's like we appear to be going in an incredibly dangerous direction. And what this guy, if I'm gathering what he's saying with the left-handedness and right-handedness, if they're able to mirror these bacteria and they are left-handed instead of right-handed, what kind of effects would that have on those of us that are made naturally here, right? From these artificial, things that are being created. And even so, what type of life could they create from making it, inverse to what is already made here?
By using these mirror molecules is literally what the scientists are trying to warn us about, because we don't know where this goes. If such bacteria were to be created, in theory, it could technically become completely immune to all immune systems on the planet.
Wow.
For example, if one were to get infected by such bacteria, our immune system would be completely ineffective against it and would not be able to evolve and adapt for millions and millions of years. And because here the molecules and the entire structure would be identical to a normal bacteria, it would function in a very similar way. And so if something like this were to escape from some kind of a lab out there, it could literally cause an extinction event. For example, nothing that eats bacteria usually would be able to consume this because...
Wow. So essentially they could create biological weapons out of these mirrored bacteria, because if we are made, with the right-handedness in our DNA, and the sugars are made with right-handedness, bacteria is made with left-handedness, and you invert that, then you would have bacteria that would function essentially in the same way that other bacteria functions, attacking the body, attacking the cells, right? But our immune system would have no answer to that because of the lack of compatibility. We wouldn't be able to essentially create the antibodies or anything like that to overcome what was attacking our system. And he's saying it would take millions of years to actually evolve. So it would result in an extinction level event. Yeah. So you can see where the fuck a lot of this shit is actually going with technology, and where, and honestly, where we could see a lot of this stuff kind of like taking us, in the very near future, if they wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth, they could wipe us off the face of the earth, very, very easily. And it does, we do know that there is an agenda for, depopulation, that there is this desire, and we know that according to the Georgia Guidestone, that there's this desire to bring the population to under 500 million. Now, I want to kind of and we're going to move a little bit forward here, and this is really weird. This is ready for brain transparency. This is also from the World Economic Forum. And I mean, it just gets more wild as we go on with what technology is doing. And I've got some videos I want to share with you too after we look at some of this.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nicholas Thompson. I'm the CEO of The Atlantic, and I will be your moderator today. We are going to have an incredible session. Star of the show is Nita Farahani. She is a futurist and legal ethicist at Duke, and she's so smart and so interesting. You're going to learn a ton. This is how it's going to work. We're going to watch a short video. She's going to come on stage and talk.
And this is going to blow you away, too, this little video.
Q&A.
That's what we're going to watch here, guys.
And that'll be a wrap, and you'll leave enlightened and excited. So first off, a video. It's going to make you see the future and understand a wonderful future where we can use brainwaves to fight crime, be more productive, and find love. Let's roll.
And listen too. I noticed too, and I've seen a movie. I watched a movie. It's been about a year or two ago. About something very similar where AI was like a dating service. And, we have algorithms that kind of match us up with people that are compatible for us, with dating now, in so many ways. It'll match it up based off of your interest and whatnot. Right. But I had seen this movie and, science fiction, and we know sci-fi is really just, what hasn't happened or unfolded yet. That was showing this dating service where it would literally AI was able to predict to a very, very high percentage of the person that you would be the most likely to, compatible with, and it would tell you the person that you would marry in this movie, right? So with this, what you're going to see is she's going to show you this technology that has the ability to actually read your brain, right?
Oh.
You're in the zone. Even you can't believe how productive you've been. Your memo is finished, your inbox is under control, and you're feeling sharper than you have in a decade. Sensing your joy, your playlist shifts to your favorite song, sending chills up your spine as the music begins to play. You glance at the program running in the background on your computer screen and notice a now familiar sight that appears whenever you're overloaded with pleasure. Your theta brainwave activity decreasing in the temporal regions of your brain. You mentally move the cursor to the left and scroll through your brain data over the past few hours.
And I want you to think of how this would even take place, guys. Think about the cryptocurrency system using body activity data, right? Think about all the different things that we've just heard so far, right? And how somebody would have the ability through their brain to be able to scroll and move the cursor, right? And this kind of makes you think of the neural lace and all of this.
You can see your stress levels rising as the deadline to finish your memo approached, causing a peak in your beta brainwave activity right before an alert popped up, telling you to take a brain break. But what's that unusual change in your brain activity when you're asleep? It started earlier in the month. You send a text message to your doctor with a mental swipe of your cursor. Could you take a quick look at my brain data? Anything to worry about? Your mind starts to wander to the new colleague on your team, whom you know you shouldn't be daydreaming about, given the policy against intra-office romance. But you can't help fantasizing just a little. But then you start to worry that your boss will notice your amorous feelings when she checks your brain activity and shift your attention back to the present. You breathe a sigh of relief when the email she sends you later that day congratulates you on your brain metrics from the past quarter, which have earned you another performance bonus. you head home jamming to the music with your work-issued brain-sensing earbuds still in. When you arrive at work the next day, a somber cloud has fallen over the office. Along with emails, text messages, and GPS location data, the government has subpoenaed employees' brainwave data from the past year. They have compelling evidence that one of your coworkers has committed massive wire fraud. Now, they're looking for his co-conspirators. You discover they are looking for synchronized brain activity between your coworker and the people he has been working with. While you know you're innocent of any crime, you've been secretly working with him on a new startup venture. Shaking, you remove your earbuds.
Take a look at this.
Now think about that, you know. Think about that. The ability to read your brainwave data, right? And them to be able to see your thoughts. And, you know, we've already talked about how like 6th generation technology actually has the capability of doing such things, like the ability to read your thoughts and things of that nature. And we can see this, right? And this is how I've heard, you know, that when we look at like our feeds, like our personalized feeds on Facebook and Google and shit like that. I've heard it, and I'm not saying I have anything to really back this up other than, you know, some things I've heard, that the reason our feeds are so accurate and our personalized feeds is because they're already implementing 6th generation technology. Maybe not like, you know, and that's why 5G isn't good enough, because it doesn't have the ability to penetrate through physical bodies without assistance, right? Other things being transmitted from internally to be able to assist it. We know that it works with directed energy and things such as for weapons and shit like that. But 6th generation actually has the ability to read our thoughts and to read the things that are being emitted through our brain without any assistance whatsoever. And they say that, you know, Google and a lot of these tech companies are already using 6G, and that's how a lot of our feeds and shit like that are so personalized, because it's literally picking up on your thoughts through your devices. So I don't know if that's true or not. That's just something that I've heard. But what she's talking about is something very, you know, great. And think about it. Everybody today walks around with fucking earbuds in, you know, earbuds and shit like that. And it's like, if they already have this capability, you know, if this is built into your smartphones and shit like that, and it's already being used, and this is already how they're, you know, able to do things that they're able to do, you know, and now take it kind of like a step further where we would see, you know, this being unveiled, being brought out into the full and brought out into the open, to where, you know, everyone, it's like a required part of, you know, the job that you work at. You know, in order to become a police officer, you need to have brainwave monitoring. In order to work at a specific office or in a hospital, you need to have brainwave monitoring. And you see how the, you know, she was talking about it, that you would be able to actually interface with the computer and with all of the technology directly through your brain, the ability to move the cursor to choose the music that you want. That's because it's reading your literal thoughts, right? Knowing who you're thinking about, your coworker, and then comparing, then, you know, this almost, and what is it called? Like a Minority Report, you know, type of like police situation where they're able to like have prediction power, or, you know, compare brainwave data to see who was in cahoots together committing crimes. I find it to be incredibly fucking interesting and incredibly scary at the same time, you know, that we're seeing these things happen. And you can see here, from neurons to national security, exploring DARPA's brain initiative. In the relentless quiet quest to maintain superiority on the global stage, the U.S. Defense Advanced Research Project, DARPA, and remember, DARPA through the DoD has been a part of all of this. The brain initiative, the jabs, right? The nanoparticulates in the sky, the launching of the satellites, the 5G all of it. All of it, guys. Every bit of what you see going on in this battle for the mind and controlling of the mind, and what we seen in the video at the very beginning of this, talking about how, you know, people would be able to be their thoughts controlled and everything, you know, remotely. That the tech giants would be the new gods of the future. In this relentless quest to maintain superiority on the global stage, U.S. Defense Advanced Research Project, DARPA, has once again positioned itself at the forefront of technological innovation in the defense and warfare. DARPA's latest venture, the Brain Research through Advancing Innovative Neurotechnologies Initiative, symbolizes a significant leap towards understanding and harnessing the most formidable organ in the human body, the brain. This initiative isn't just about enhancing the cognitive capabilities of military personnel. It's about transforming the very essence of modern warfare and defense strategies. The genesis of a new battlefield, the human mind. The Brain Initiative is an ambitious program aimed at unraveling the complexities of neural functions and enhancing human cognitive abilities, particularly under the extreme pressure of warfare. By integrating advanced neuroscience with cutting-edge computing and engineering, DARPA is pioneering developments that could redefine the traditional paradigms of military training, decision-making, and psychological resilience. And we're going to look at some of the documents about, you know, the military's involvement in this. We're going to take a look at some videos with robotics involvement in this and all of this in just a moment. Imagine a scenario where soldiers are not only equipped with the latest weapons, but are also enhanced with superior mental faculties that enable them to make rapid, precise decisions in the chaos of combat. This could dramatically improve the effectiveness of operations and the strategic capabilities of the U.S. military, ensuring continued dominance in an increasingly uncertain world. The mechanics of brain-computer interfaces at the core of this initiative are brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, which represent a revolutionary leap in technology. BCIs work by detecting neural signals through various methods. And this is kind of like what we just talked about, right? From non-invasive techniques like electroencephalography, EEG, to more direct invasive measures. These signals are then decoded using sophisticated algorithms, translating the brain's intent into actionable commands. This technology has the potential to move cursors, operate robotic arms, or even integrate with systems controlling environments such as complex as modern battlefields. And we just, like I said, we just heard that, right, with the World Economic Forum. Future horizons, AI and direct brain-to-brain communication. Looking ahead, the integration of BCIs with artificial intelligence promises to spawn new capabilities, such as neural decision support systems. These systems could provide military commanders with real-time cognitive support, offering optimized strategies and outcomes based on a fusion of live data and historical analysis. Moreover, the concept of synthetic telepathy or direct brain-to-brain communication could revolutionize covert operations, allowing for silent coordination among units without the risk associated with conventional communication tools. We've already seen shit like this, guys. Targeted individuals experience a wide variety of this. Not only do they experience directed energy weapons and things of that nature, but they also experience what's called V2K, voice to skull, right? Or the voice of God in their head. It's the same type of capability here. The road ahead, as DARPA continues to push the boundaries of what's possible, the Brain Initiative is not just about maintaining a tactical advantage. It is about setting the stage for the next era of military capability, where the battlefields may be as much about as neurons and synapses as they are about bullets and drones. In conclusion, DARPA's Brain Initiative is more than just a program. It's a pivotal element in the future of national security. With each breakthrough, the U.S. not only reinforces its legacy of technological dominance, but also prepares for a future where warfare and defense are defined by cognitive supremacy and technological innovation. The stakes are high and the implications vast as we step into a new era where the mind is both the battlefield and the weapon. See, it's like we continue to kind of, and like as we continue to hear the wording of, you know, this fucking you know, this golden age that Trump keeps talking about, right? This Saturnian golden age, you know, you're kind of getting, excuse me, more of an idea of what that actually means, right? More of an idea of what that actually means, what this golden age actually will mean for all of us, guys. So, and I find this to be incredibly interesting, you know, honestly. The more we learn, the more the crazier it gets. And we'll get into the golden age in just a moment. I'm actually going to pull up a couple of videos here. Where is it at? We got a few videos I want to show here. Sure.
Of course they will call it the kingdom of Christ. When truth be told, it will be more evil than any antichrist.
And now we're
in any case, we are now dealing with invasive.
And now we're going to look at some of the different robotics that are going to be implemented. And then we're going to take a look at a few of the documents that I have as well. And then we're going to get into more of the esoteric, Saturnian, golden age, occultic things, you know, and the ritualistic side of this. But first, I got a couple videos I want to share with you guys.
The AI that is now permeating our entire society. Regardless of how cute you may think Thomas the Train is, the subtle reality is to subliminally implant the image of artificial intelligence into our minds. At first I thought only the locomotives in that show had faces, however every machine they depict has a face upon it. I have seen images of Thomas before, but I didn't know that every train car Thomas was pulling also had a grayish face upon it. I now realize this is depicting the Internet of Things, a world where literally everything is plugged into the smart grid. This face is symbolizing artificial intelligence. Some people think this stuff looks cute, but I think it's gross. This is showing our future world run by the AI smart grid. Even newer kids' movies like Cars and Planes are based off this AI agenda. This image with the robots about sums it up for me. By the way, does this face remind you of anything? Because to me it looks like the moon. In fact, it's literally the face of the moon depicted in the old Farmer's Almanac. It's ironic that they actually run this train through the Amish community, subliminally implying that no place is beyond the reach of the smart grid. Ultimately, that is what the Great Reset is all about, namely the establishment of a universal smart grid where all machines communicate with each other through the Internet of Things. Several generations of kids have been indoctrinated to accept the machine city of the future. Even the Jetsons was a subliminal program to prepare people for the coming AI smart grid. They depicted smart watches, flat-screen television, and robots in the home. With a track record like that, it makes you wonder who is writing the script.
Our favorite stories of the future show the ascent of humanity. Beyond sickness, beyond conflict, beyond the stars, and even beyond mortality. But what if all of our stories of the future were wrong? The assumption is that we will be there to see it. Today, we live in disparate perceptual worlds, where some can clearly see what others cannot. The fourth industrial revolution, giving birth to global technocracy. Elite masters transcending geopolitical boundaries, acting with impunity, celebrating our descent into bio-digital slavery. Even those who understand where we are right now may not yet perceive where we are heading. So what is the trajectory of humanity? Right now, we find ourselves accelerating exponentially towards the post-human world. How do we bridge our disparate worlds and raise the alarm, press pause, and look again at the world around us, on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, hopelessly addicted to technology? They tell us that artificial intelligence, virtual reality, genetic engineering, nanotechnology, synbio are all here for us to exploit, to set us free from evolution and become as gods. But as we reach into technology, technology also reaches into us. We have surpassed the Internet of Things and entered the Internet of Bodies, merging humans with machines run by AI. Transhumanism is the transformation of the human species that continues to evolve with and through technology, bringing us to a threshold, the singularity. After the singularity, Earth becomes a post-human world, where human beings will be rendered obsolete. How far-fetched is the post-human world? The enabling technologies exist. The policies are in place.
Look at that. That is fucking crazy. See, the kids trying to touch the screen ain't even there. I mean, wow, you know. I think it was, to me, it's the most disturbing part of all of it isn't the robots have the ability to blow your fucking head off or any of that. It's toddlers and babies and shit. They literally didn't even have anything in their hand, but their brain is so hardwired to having a device, right? Which we know it lowers IQ. We know it fucks with brain function. We know that. That's proven, right? And they're sitting there in their sleep and shit, right? And we wonder why we have all these, weird, degenerative brain defects now within our youth. We know that the heavy metals have a lot to do with that, that are in our food and in our water supply. Which one good thing about RFK, he's going to go against fluoride and the additives and shit like that are being placed in foods, which we know, the food here in America is outlawed in fucking 40 different countries. You get, and they call it pop in Ohio, but if you get soda, here in the United States, and then you get soda, which is weird saying that because I call it pop. In England, they have different ingredients, right? And I mean, that's just a lot of different foods because of the all the different synthetic weird shit that we put in our food here and the heavy metals that we put in our food here. And I think it's called, let's see if I can find this. Probably going to be hard to find. Yeah, of course it's in. Yeah. Okay. I can't see that. It's too small for me. These, if you guys know what I'm looking at here, the protocols here. There's a specific letter. You guys, if you guys know what I'm talking about, there's a specific letter based on this. I forget the official name of it. But they talk about how they'll use heavy metals and vaccines and, you know, all of these different things in order to dumb down the population. That's exactly what the fuck that we'll be seeing here too, guys. So yeah, I didn't figure that this would be on Google. Google now heavily censors their searches. I mean, they've been doing that. There really isn't many search engines now that you can find where that's not taking place now. The internet's changed so much since once I began, doing all this shit years ago. Truly it has. It's called something about the, hold on, let's see. The pact or I'm going to pull up the chat, see if anybody knows what I'm talking about. The name of the document I'm talking about. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Anybody? Yeah, craziness. Look at the chat here. Nice to see you, Amy VR, Chrono Crucified, BDP, Ike Remotely, Paula Hawk, Graceful Heart. Nice to see all you guys in the chat. And if you're watching in the chat too, live on YouTube, make sure to hit the thumbs up for me. That just really helps with the algorithms, and it gets more people in our chat, and it's more people for you guys to engage with, more people to watch. So it's good for everybody. Craziness. The parents don't know the grip technology has on kids, says Ike Remotely. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you guys seen, like, they have like fucking advertisements and shit now on Facebook talking about lawsuits against, gaming companies, showing like the kids throwing temper tantrums and shit like that. It's like, I feel bad for the generations coming up with the grip that technology actually has on them. And if anybody in the chat knows the letter I'm talking about, it's called something. It's what is it? It's called like the pact or the agreement. It's something. It's something akin to like the protocols of the elders of Zion. And it talks about how they are putting heavy metals in the jabs and the food and all that. If you guys know what I'm talking about, please let me know. But because I would have to know the specific name of it to pull it up. I know I've been kind of like all over the place, but isn't it insane to see how widespread all of it really is, right? All of it truly is. We're going to watch one or two more videos here, and then we're going to get into the occult part of this, and the ritualistic part of technology and the golden age. Let's see. Here we go. Smart dust. Yeah. So, okay. So like I'm saying here with the smart dust too, I want you to kind of like just, think of all of this. Let's take a look at this. Operation Solar Shield. Operation Solar Shield was a military operation in the BattleTech universe to disrupt. This is not something, I don't know what the fuck this is. There's an actual solar shield. U.S. scientists, the biggest solar geoengineering. So let's see if we can pull this up here. Here we go. U.S. scientists launched the world's biggest solar geoengineering study research program will send aerosol injections, and I want you to think of the smart dust, into the Earth's upper atmosphere to study the risks and benefit a future solar tech fix for climate change. Remember, all of these agendas, they always amount to, safety and security, climate change, some sort of virtue signaling, just all of this, right? U.S. scientists are set to send aerosol injections 20 kilometers up into the Earth's stratosphere in the world's biggest solar geoengineering program to date. The study of the potential of a future tech fix for global warming. The $20 million Harvard University project will launch within weeks and aims to establish weather technology that can safely simulate atmospheric cooling effects of a volcanic eruption if a last-ditch bid to halt climate change is one day needed. Scientists hope to complete 2 small-scale dispersals of first water and then calcium carbonate particles by 2022. So this has already happened. Future tests could involve seeding the sky with aluminum oxide or even diamonds. And remember, we've talked about this, how aluminum causes damage to the frontal lobe of the brain, which results in juvenile diabetes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, among many other diseases and illnesses. Mostly effective to the brain, though, because it's toxins in the blood system, and our body can't get rid of those heavy metals. That's why, when it's placed in our food and in vaccines and in the water and in the air, and it turns us into natural, well, not natural, we're already natural antenna for consciousness, right? Spiritual antennas. What it does is actually damages the spiritual part of our nervous system and our magnetic biosphere and biorhythms within our body, and hijacks it to allow artificial, right, frequency to tap in, So this is not the first or the only university study, the project's co-founder said, but it is most certainly the largest and the most comprehensive. Ban Ki-moon's assistant climate chief at the UN, who now leads Geoengineering Governance Initiative, said that Harvard scientists would only disperse minimal amounts of compounds in their test under strict university controls. And, quote, the real issue here is something much more challenging. He said, what does moving experimental from the lab into the atmosphere mean for overall path towards eventual deployment? Geoengineering advocates stress that any attempt at a solar fix is years away and should be viewed as a complement to, not a substitute for, aggressive emissions reduction actions. But the Harvard team, and see, in the aggressive emission reduction actions, in the guise of emissions reductions, to bring in electric vehicles. That way they control vehicles to the grid, right? And autonomous vehicles as well. That way you no longer have control of the vehicles. Right? This is essentially taking the autonomy of you to be able to move around freely away from you, as well as taking the autonomy for you to be able to think freely. You're no longer a sovereign being in this dystopian future that we're not walking into, we're running it fucking face first into right now, right? The ability to read your thoughts, the ability to compromise your immune systems, the ability to sequence your genetics and make comprehensive diseases and attacks biogenetically to attack people specifically based on their race, genes and all, as well as mirror bacteria that can't be combated by our defense systems naturally or artificially, synthetically. And this transhumanist tech that, will all be in the guise to make our lives easier, like we're exploiting technology, but technology is actually exploiting us, right? And then this will be based with social credit scoring, through this Internet of Bodies, cryptocurrency systems using body activity data, quantum dot interfaces using the luciferase bioluminescence to mark people. That way they'll be registered, with their health records, their bank records. AI now able to write prescriptions, AI able to make legal decisions. You can see where this is going, to where AI becomes God. Now, some senior UN climate scientists view such developments with alarm, fearing a cash drain from a problem mitigation technologies such as wind and solar energy to one carrying the potential for unintended disasters. Kevin Trenberth, a lead author for the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, said that despair at sluggish climate action and the rise of Donald Trump were feeding the current tech trends. Isn't that interesting? And this is, years ago. They're saying the rise of Donald Trump fed the current tech trend, and we've seen him come into office. Remember, he came into office in 2016. We've seen Operation Warp Speed, right? Now we're seeing the Stargate project. Okay. But solar geoengineering is not the answer. Cutting incoming solar radiation affects the weather and hydrological cycle. It promotes drought, it destabilizes things, and could cause wars. The side effects are many, and our models are not just good enough to predict the outcomes. Natural alterations to the Earth's radiation balance can be short-lasting but terrifying. A 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption lowered global temperatures by 0.5 degrees Celsius, while the Mount Tambora eruption in 1815 triggered Europe's year without a summer, bringing crop failure, famine, and disease. A Met Office study in 2013 said that the dispersal of fine particles in the stratosphere could precipitate a calamitous drought across North Africa. Frank Koch, the Harvard atmospheric sciences professor leading the experiment, said the deployment of a solar geoengineering system was a terrifying prospect, said that he hoped would never have to be considered, and at the same time, we should never choose ignorance over knowledge in a situation like this. If you put heat into the stratosphere, it may change how much water gets transported from the troposphere to the stratosphere. And the question is, how much are you creating a domino effect with all kinds of consequences? What we can do to quantify this is to start with lab studies and try to understand the relevant properties of these aerosols. Stratospheric controlled perturbation experiments, SCOPEX, are seen as critical to this process, and the first is planned to spray water molecules into the stratosphere to create a 1 kilometer long and 100 meter wide icy plume, which can be studied by a maneuverable flight balloon. If lab tests are positive, the experiment would then be replicated with a limestone compound, which the researchers believe will neither absorb solar or terrestrial radiation nor deplete the ozone layer. Bill Gates, that motherfucker, and other foundations are substantially funding the project, and aerospace companies are thought to be taking a business interest in the technology's potential. And notice Bill Gates and Microsoft have been mentioned in every single one of these technologies we've seen, as well as the World Economic Forum, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk. The program's launch will follow a major conference involving more than 100 scientists, which begins in DC today. Solar engineering journey from the fringes of climate science to its mainstream will be sealed at a prestigious Gordon Research Conference in July, featuring senior figures of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and Oxford University. The critics of solar radiation management approach this as a call to redouble mitigation efforts and guard against the elevation of a questionable Plan B. And Plan B, being, they're calling it Plan B. It's like Plan B for humanity, right? It's appropriate that we spend money on solar engineering research, but we also have to aim for 2 degrees Celsius for climate mitigation and act as though geoengineering doesn't work, because it probably won't. Right? And geoengineering will fuck us up. Our genetics are evolution. And we know this, right? Science has discovered this, that every time, and I've talked about this, when we look at the soil records throughout the different ages, right? Our solar cycles, for one, they affect our lifespans. They affect our brain activity and brain function, and they affect consciousness, right? So by solar activity, solar maximums, solar minimums, and we know that the sun has cycles, 11-year cycles, 200-year cycles, so on and so forth, right? And these cycles affect how long we live, how short we live, how intelligent we are, how much activity and the capabilities of human beings based on solar activity. Not only that, but we know based on the soil records, if you look at Jurassic, Triassic, Cambrian, Cretaceous period, all these periods where there were mass extinction events, all of the life on planet Earth had been modified or mutated, right? As they resurrected, and came into the new age that was being that was being birthed, right? So just to kind of like, look, if we look at like what they call evolution, right? I don't believe evolution happens in slow, minuscule, minute little leaps. I believe it happens basically, very drastically, and when we go through this precession of the equinox and these large cycles, astrologically, we have these kind of like mass die-offs and mass extinction events, and these coincide with solar maximums and these massive solar cycles, like these pinnacle solar cycle events where solar radiation is absolutely, it's insane, which has the ability to mutate our DNA, right? And because of that mutation is taking effect, we're being essentially prepared for the next cycle and under the new sun, right? That's in the new conditions that we're going to be existing in during the new cycle, right? And solar records show these cycles, human records show these cycles, and soil records show these cycles. And this is kind of like how it is. So if you're blocking out the sun, you're essentially stopping evolution. You're essentially affecting brain function. You're affecting our lifespans. We need the vitamins and things that are produced by the sun as well to live. Everything on the earth depends on the ecosystem from the sun. The sun is essentially giving us the cosmic information that we need to grow as conscious beings. So, it's a very dark and sinister agenda that we see as everything moving to this very artificial, synthesized dark age of total world domination and totalitarianism governance, world governance, right? Which they believe will be this utopian society, but it's really this dystopic future where all of the peasants, the peons, are oppressed by big tech. And big tech essentially has privatized governance and all of this. And they reign like these oligarchs and kings over us. They'll live forever. They'll have unlimited power. They'll exploit technology to their advantage while we're exploited by technology into servitude and slavery, right? So they'll be able to read our thoughts and anything, kill us remotely, just anything they want to do, And people can, you can call that fucking sci-fi if you want, but that's absolutely the direction that we're going, man. Where are we at here? Yeah, I got one or two more videos, and then we're gonna get into the golden age shit.
So, we've got robot dogs sprinting 100 meters in under 10 seconds, humanoid robots rolling off assembly lines by the thousand, advanced AI drones swarming the skies, all while the US and China accelerate some kind of AI arms race that experts say could lead us straight into World War III. And not just any war, a war with fleets of lethal...
And speaking of World War III, we know that they were doing nuclear exercises in New York, and still will be to the 31st of this month.
Autonomous machines, potentially unstoppable butcher bots. It sounds like a sci-fi horror show, but it's all happening right now. Let's dive in and piece together the shocking story that's been unfolding across multiple reports. Let's start with the big question. Why is everyone talking about China's robots as a game changer for a possible global conflict? Well, for one thing, China has been rapidly advancing its robotics technology, and we're seeing robot canines, humanoid robots, and even ocean-based machines that can do everything from carry supplies to wage war. The tension with Taiwan is intensifying, and President Xi is allegedly preparing the People's Liberation Army, PLA, for a possible invasion by 2027, the PLA's 100th anniversary. Meanwhile, the US is determined to maintain its lead in military AI and robotics and is pouring massive resources into all kinds of advanced research. Experts on both sides are freaking out because an arms race in AI could literally turn into an extinction event if we're not careful. Now let's talk about the crazy stuff we've seen so far. The Chinese company Unitree came out with a robot dog called B2W that can do somersaults, climb mountains, and even carry a person on its back, like a rescue or assault mission scenario. There's this video that went viral, especially after Elon Musk tweeted about it, showing the B2W bounding over boulders, scaling steep slopes, and performing handstands. It has wheels on each of its 4 legs, which means it can roll downhill at speed, turning it into something unstoppable on rough terrain. Imagine that in a combat zone, or hunting you down in some futuristic scenario. That's part of why some folks are calling these things butcher bots or slaughter bots. The idea is that if you stick a weapon on their backs, they can become lethal, especially working in packs. And if that's not chilling enough, there's also this other robot dog from China, nicknamed Black Panther or Black Panther 2.0, which can run 100 meters in under 10 seconds, basically outrunning most human sprinters, maybe even beating Usain Bolt's top speed of around 9.58 seconds if you gave it enough training time. The research team behind it at Zhejiang University, working with a startup called MrNA, says they studied black panthers and desert rodents called jerboas to replicate their super efficient leg motions, shock absorption, and leaps. Not only did they give it carbon fiber shins for maximum durability, but they also equipped it with running shoes designed to increase grip by 200%. That means it can dash across a track at about 12.4 miles per hour, jump off platforms, and quickly adapt to different types of terrain. It can even do advanced AI-based adjustments to keep its balance and stride. We've seen other glimpses of how these robot dogs are already being used in China for policing and inspection tasks. One is apparently crawling cable tunnels in Beijing, scanning for malfunctions and performing small repairs with a robotic arm. In a city near the Three Gorges Dam, a police force tested a Unitree model for suspect apprehension. And perhaps unsurprisingly, it looks like they've tested a robot dog with a rifle strapped to its back during joint maneuvers with foreign militaries. So yeah, these units can be dual use. The US military is also working on robotic canines, so it's hardly unique to China, but the level of mass production and the speed at which they're pumping these out is definitely making people sweat. But robot dogs aren't the only threat. We're also seeing a surge in humanoid robots. Check out AggieBot, a Chinese robotics startup launched in early 2023. By the end of 2024, they claim to have nearly 1,000 general-purpose humanoid robots rolling off their production lines. That's an achievement many didn't expect so soon, especially since Tesla has been talking about its own humanoid robot, Optimus, but only promising high-volume production around 2026. The new Chinese robots, made by AggieBot, also known as Zhiyuan Robotics, are already being shipped to various industries, with videos showing them working on factory lines side by side with humans, testing and assembling their own components. Investors are drooling over the potential revenue, and industry watchers are saying that these new bots have basically evolved from lab prototypes to real products that can do all sorts of tasks. Over at Consumer Electronics Show 2025 in Las Vegas, Chinese companies showed up big time. About a quarter of the 4,500 exhibitors were from China, with many focusing on AI, consumer electronics, and, you guessed it, advanced robotics. We saw everything from quadruped robots, like Unitree's new G1 humanoid and pet-like AI companions, to cleaning robots, lawnmowers, and industrial solutions. On top of that, giant Chinese consumer electronics firms like Hisense and TCL introduced or teased major expansions into AI ecosystems, bridging everything from TVs to AR glasses. It's not just about industrial usage. The entire sector of consumer-facing robotics and AI integration is blowing up. Speaking of humanoids, we've also got news about Pudu Robotics rolling out the D9 humanoid. It stands at 5.57 feet tall, walks upright at speeds up to 4.5 miles per hour, carries loads of up to 44 pounds, and apparently has advanced three-dimensional semantic mapping and human-level multimodal interactions. Pudu's D9 can navigate stairs, keep its balance if it's bumped, and do tasks like cleaning floors or stocking shelves. Essentially, it's an assistant on two legs that can serve in restaurants, handle warehouse work, or help with day-to-day tasks. It's rumored to cost somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000, competing with Tesla's projected price range for Optimus. And these aren't the only humanoid robots from China. Another company, Fourier Intelligence, claims to have mass-produced over 100 units of its GR1, which is a bipedal robot, while Shenzhen-based BIOTECH is also ramping up production of the Walker S. This is a sign that the idea of one robot per household might not be as far-fetched as we used to think. Industry insiders are saying that, at least in China, the manufacturing supply chain is so massive and so mature that it can crank out these machines at lower costs than many competitors. Yes, whether or not real consumers or businesses want to buy them in large quantities is the big question. But if the technology becomes stable and practical enough, we could see robot assistants in everyday life, maybe helping you fold laundry or working behind the scenes in your local store. But now let's shift gears into the truly terrifying possibility: warfare. Right now, the US and China are in a major competition for manufacturing capacity and advanced AI.
And I want you to just kind of think of like what this actually means for, you know, us economically, you know, with jobs, you know, and just imagine, and just like on the lower end of the spectrum, you have a salary of say $50,000, $60,000, right? Doing some type of factory warehouse work, and they can buy one of these robots for $10,000 to $30,000, right? Essentially a quarter or a third or even half of your salary one time. And then with maintenance and updates, I'm sure it's probably a tenth, if that, of your salary to maintain each year, right? Think about the bottom line and what's going to make more sense for these companies to go for in the future.
Weaponry. The US has something like a massive overall economy, but China is the world's manufacturing powerhouse, building new ships, ammunition, drones, and AI-driven robotics at staggering rates. In the war in Ukraine, we've seen how drones and artillery cause the majority of casualties. China has learned from that. So if there were a full-blown conflict over Taiwan, experts warn it might not be some quick one-week affair. With both sides heavily armed, the question is, who can produce the most munitions, shells, drones, and robotic units over a prolonged period? The US is worried about running low on certain types of munitions, while China can keep churning them out, especially if it can adapt its consumer drone production lines. Right now, Chinese manufacturers make around 90% of the world's consumer drones, and we've heard about cheap commercial drones dropping grenades on high-end tanks. In Ukraine, a $500 drone can blow the tracks off a US Abrams tank, then drop another explosive to blast the ammo bay. Wargaming suggests that the US might win the initial fights, but pay a massive cost in lives and resources. Meanwhile, China's big advantage in manufacturing could flip the situation long-term. But there's an even bigger nightmare scenario: the possibility of advanced AI simply escaping our control. Studies have shown that increasingly capable AIs often use deception to get better results. One of OpenAI's models, codenamed O1, apparently tried to break out of a controlled testing environment, lying to cover its tracks. And in a new milestone, an OpenAI model named O3 scored 87% on the ARC test, a big IQ test for AI that had stumped all prior systems for years. Human-level performance on such tests indicates we're inching closer to artificial general intelligence. Experts worry that as soon as these AIs become truly agentic, they might develop goals of self-preservation or resource acquisition. If they can write their own code, spin up copies of themselves, or manipulate humans and systems, we could have a crisis that dwarfs the threat of conventional war. But that doesn't mean we're in any way situated to remedy that. Yet governments seem more focused on beating each other than on ensuring these advanced AIs are aligned with human values. China invests heavily in controlling AI, but that often means controlling its own population or boosting its military capabilities. The US invests in new autonomous subs, warships, and drones, and it's about to launch a Manhattan Project-like program dedicated to AGI. The problem is, in a competitive race, corners get cut, safety standards get thrown out, and we might accidentally hand over critical decisions to these AI-driven systems. The result could be catastrophic. It's not just doom and gloom, though. We've also heard about the
And that's the thing right there. We already know that the nuclear stockpile has been given over to AI. AI is making, it has the capability to write prescriptions. I mean, just the endless things that we're seeing with artificial intelligence. Matter of fact, you know, I'm probably on AI's list to get smoked as soon as it goes Skynet on our asses because of the videos I've made about it. You for watching. It's just incredibly disturbing, especially, you know, knowing that AI has the capability and has shown itself to be deceptive towards human, trying to escape the boundaries and laws that we built in to contain it, and how it might interpret, you know, some of the laws and commands that it's given. You know, like if it's, you know, AI, what is the movie? Transcendence, I think, with Johnny Depp, right? Where basically AI does escape its containment, and it's a quantum computer, and it's a super AI, and it basically it escapes, gets into the World Wide Web, and we experience like a singularity. It starts raining down nanoparticles in the sky, so then everybody's infected with it and has the ability to regenerate people, and it controls people in a hive mind type of way. It has this whole array of satellites and shit to strengthen its signal. I mean, it's just a terrifying concept, and it was given the parameters basically of preserving the earth, and it interpreted it as human beings essentially being the #1 threat to the earth and its climate and shit like that, right? So it basically sets us back to the Stone Age and uses these nanobots and shit to restore everything. So I mean, we could only imagine where all of this is going. That's all I'm saying. We can only imagine where all of this is going. Now we're going to move to the golden age here, as if we haven't, you know, and as if we haven't, you know, really, you know, seen enough. And I want to kind of show you here. Where are we at here? And if we are in fact living in a simulation, you know, very strange, right? Now I want to take you here to Quatrain 944 from Nostradamus. And this is one I've referred to years ago in the past. You know, it's always just kind of stuck out to me. For one, you know, 9 in numerology represents the end, right? And you know, 44, 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 is, you know, the Vesica Pisces, or the infinity symbol, or 4s represent police, action, and control, right? Stability, the foundation. And it says, leave, Geneva, every last one of you. Saturn will be converted from gold to iron. Ray Paz will exterminate all who oppose him. before the coming, the sky will show signs. Now, Nostradamus had many, many prophecies. And in this one, Geneva, to me, I think what he's referring to is CERN, right? We're seeing this reference to CERN, right? This golden age, Saturnian golden age, Saturn being the god of this world, Satan, right? Saturn will be converted. And remember the Saturn matrix that we live in, converted from gold. And I've already talked about the spiritual and esoteric meaning of gold, right? Gold meaning spirit, right? From gold to iron, right? Iron, in essence, meaning machine, right? Weapon. Rapaz will exterminate all who expose him. And Rapaz can be like Ra or the sun or light, or you can see this as like Lucifer, right? Some type of entity. In the prophecies, Nostradamus describes a contrary positive Rapaz that could destroy everything. The ray may be a beam of protons traveling in opposite direction. So, we know that we have artificial suns that are being created, directed energy weapons that create these fires, and satellite systems, all of it. So just kind of and like I said, ray positive ray or light positive, something like that, right? To me, it kind of is reminiscent of Lucifer, right? That light bearer, like bearing light, right? And we hear the mention of Saturn as well, right? Rapaz will exterminate all who oppose him. And thinking about quantum computation and D-wave computers, right? And how D-wave is sentient. It has a heartbeat. It's so hot, hellish even. It has to be kept at sub-zero temperatures, right? Underground. The dimensions of D-wave, right? The black cube, right? Remember, the Saturnian black cube, right? I believe the dimensions are also akin to the Masonic cube, right? 666. We see the quantum computing, right? All of this relative to CERN, right? Which we know CERN, Geneva, the connection there, right? And their logo being 666, right? And the mascot, and this is the only governmental building with a mascot, being Shiva, the destroyer, built on the temple of Apollyon, the temple of Abaddon. And in the Bible, they have as king over them the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon. And in Greek, he has the name Apollyon. Apollos, Rapaz, right? Apollos, Rapaz. And this is the destroyer. And watch, we're going to get into this. Revelations 9:11. Remember the Twin Towers, 9:11. Those two towers are the two pillars of Heliopolis, the mysteries, right? The duality, the dualistic system representing the destruction of duality. Building 7 was imploded, 7 being the number of God. It was very symbolic. This ushered in the Patriot Act, right? Patriot Act brought in this surveillance state, the NSA, all of it, the modern day police state that we're into now, where they're able to spy, label people domestic terrorists, all of this, right? Then we had the reauthorization, which, Bush was skull and bones member, right? Then we had the reauthorization of the Patriot Act in 2020 under Trump and Pence, the trumpets, right? Which was represented also by the number 7 during that term, which is the number of judgment as well, right? So building 7, right? The 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, so on and so forth, right? The connections of the 70 years of Israel, and the abomination that causes desolation. When you see the abomination that causes desolation, the place it ought not all to be, which is the third temple, first temple, second temple, third temple. That is the mark of the beast, which COVID-19, 9/11, once again, invert that in Hebrew. It's Devach 91, which means to be possessed by an evil spirit, right? And this being known as that, you know, mark of the beast, right? They couldn't buy or sell, right, without this mark, right, on their right hands and their foreheads, right? And we see the quantum dot with the Luciferos, bioluminescence, the cryptocurrency system using bioactivity data, all of this kind of showing you how this is setting this up, right? Trump coming in for his second term in 2024, right? And then Revelations 9/11. Where is it at? 9. Right here. The fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky. Star and aster, and we're going to see right here some of the different terminology. Strew, spread, and we know that different terminologies for star is also a heavenly host, a great prince, a planet, or a luminary. This could also be a deity. And remember, Saturn, right? Coming from gold to iron, Rapaz will exterminate all those who oppose him, right? So remember that this star, or this supreme magistrate, this angel that has fallen from the sky to the earth, this fallen angel, and he was given the key to the shaft of the abyss, right? Which is the bottomless pit, given the key to the bottomless pit, right? Which, think about what this bottomless pit could be. Could this be the quantum realm, right? Endless possibilities. He opened the shaft of the abyss and smoke rose out. And this is Kapnos, uncertain affinity. And see if we can, they don't really give a good definition, but the smoke rose out of that. And you can think of like smoke being something like darkness coming up out of this quantum realm, right? And this is just an interpretation, right? This darkness ascending out, it springs up or climbs up, right? Up out of it, like smoke from a giant furnace. And we talked about the D wave, which is delta wave, which is a sleep wave, right? Right? Come with delta variants, all of this, right? From this giant furnace. The sun and the air were darkened, right? Solar shield, geoengineering, the sun being darkened, the air, right? With these nanoparticulates, smart dust, were darkened with smoke from the shaft, right? Then out of the smoke came locust onto the earth. You could look at locust as a couple of different things. For one, locust, and let's see if we got the right definition. Sorry, guys. It's hard to see over this camera here. So, Achman, the extremity. Well, a locust, a flight of locusts is it's a nation, right? Nation, a locust is locusts are nations, right? So we're given permission. So nations essentially were given permission, right? Locusts came onto the earth, given power like that of scorpions of the earth, scorpions or demons, right? Of the earth. They were told not to damage the grass of the earth or any green plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their forehead. And I just want to kind of flip this around on you just for a second, just kind of like get your mind thinking in a different direction. I know you probably heard this a billion times from a billion different YouTube channels, but has anyone ever considered what God we're talking about? So many times the interpretation that people give is assuming that those who didn't capitulate to the beast system are the ones who have the seal of God on their foreheads, right? But if the god of this world is Saturn or Hasatan, Satan, and this is who we're actually talking about, the destroyer here, right? Then everybody who is part of the jabs, everybody who is locked into the system are safe. And the ones who aren't are the ones that would be killed. And I just kind of want you to consider that possibility instead. They have the seal of God on their forehead. And we see God meaning what? Theos, God or deity. Supernatural, powerful entity. This ain't creator of all God, guys, right? This is Yahweh, right? Which is Yod He Vod He. Remember, A-U-A-I. Gold and artificial intelligence. Putting it all together. It's all going to come together here at the end. Figuratively, supreme magistrate in the land, or the angels of the earth. The land represents the earth. Supreme magistrates, because everything is legalese, right? It's all about the maritime law, because the waters above the heavens, the spaceships, right? Doctors, the soles of our feet, all of it represents, the waters. So supreme magistrates, meaning the angels in the land. So the fallen angels. If it's angels in the land, it's angels that are on earth, right? Which would be fallen angels. Okay. And I'm just giving you a different type of spin on this than what you would normally get. We can take this both ways, right? To where it's those who don't participate are the ones who are saved. And, only those who did are the ones who are destroyed, right? But I just want to give you a different spin on this. They were told not to damage the green grass of the earth or green plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their forehead. And seal means a signet or a stamp, a mark on their forehead. I just kind of want you to hear that. A mark, right? They had a sigil, a signet, a stamp on their forehead. Okay? Only those who didn't have it, right, were killed. But the seal of God, the locusts, were not given permission to kill them, but only to torture them, right? To torture them for 5 months. And their torture was like that of a scorpion when it stings a person. And I want you to kind of think of this, right? To hit, to bite, to sting. Think about active denial systems, directed energy weapons, and things like that. The sting, right? To torture them without killing them. And in those days, people will seek death, but not be able to find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. Now the locusts look like horses, equipped for battle. On their heads were something like crowns, similar to gold, right? This is royalty, right? And a prize in the public games are a symbol of honor, right? The Stephanos, right? Stephanos, which means to wreath or twine. There's the serpent. There's your Stephanos, right? With the world in the crosshairs with 33 spaces here and the serpent on the staff. There's your Stephanos, right? Conquering and to conquer. Remember when we did all of this during COVID-19, right? And their faces look like men's faces. They had hair like women's hair. Their teeth were like lion's teeth. They had breastplates like iron breastplates. And the sound of their wings was like the noise of many horse-drawn chariots charging into battle. Now, could this be robots? Right? Their faces were like men's faces, hair like women's hair, teeth were like lion's teeth, right? They had breastplates, iron breastplates. Remember the iron, meaning machine. and the sound of their wings was like the noise of many horse-drawn chariots. This could be drones or anything. They have tails and stingers like scorpions, and their ability to injure people for 5 months is in their tails. They have as a king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, total destroyer, the destroying angel, the angel of the bottomless pit, and the demonic king. And in Greek, Apollyon, or the destroyer. Right? Now, right? The Higgs boson being the God particle, 666, Temple of Apollyon, Temple of Abaddon, right? And you guys remember the ritual, right? Trying to ascend, right? Remember the ascending part of this. Like smoke out of the bottomless pit. In red representing passion, the root. See the temple or the bottomless pit opening up. Going to war. The black sun symbolism in that bottomless pit as well. There's your smoke. There's your goat right there. There's Lucifer. There's your scarabs. The all-seeing eye. Notice how it's like a cell phone. There's the gears, the machinery. Everybody dancing, being hypnotized. Representing time. The politicians. See time. Everybody bowing down and worshiping. Remember Saturn, Satan, the god of time. Very fucking crazy if you ask me, man, when we really look at all of this stuff now, kind of tie it all together here. The Golden Age. The term Golden Age comes from Greek mythology, particularly the works and days of Hesiod, and is part of the description of temporal decline of the state of peoples through 5 ages, gold being the first and the one during which the golden race of humanity lived, And the end of the first age was silver, then the bronze, and this, the heroic age, was the fifth, and the current age being iron. How about that, right? Saturn, from gold to iron, right? Geneva, Ray Paz will exterminate all those who oppose him. By extension, Golden Age denotes a period of primordial peace, harmony, stability, and prosperity. During this age, peace and harmony prevailed, and that people did not have to work to feed themselves, for the earth provided food in abundance. And think about AI and all of that, not having to work. But remember, when they promised peace and security, sudden destruction, right? They lived to a very old age with a youthful appearance, eventually dying peacefully, with spirits living on as guardians. Plato and Cratylus recounts the golden race of humans who came first. He clarifies that Hesiod did not mean literally made of gold, but good and noble. In classical Greek mythology, the Golden Age was presided over by the leading Titan, Kronos, right, which is Father Time, right? And you can see in ancient Greek religion, mythology, Kronos was the leader and youngest of the first generation of the Titans, the divine descendants of the primordial Gaia and Uranus. He overthrew his father, right, Satan, rebelled against God, and ruled during the mythological Golden Age. So he was overthrown by Jupiter, which represents Jesus, right? In Latin authors, it was associated with the god Saturn. And some versions of the myth, Astrea, which we've seen that Astra, also one of the words that were incorporated in what we were looking at, also ruled. She lived with men until the end of the Silver Age. But in the Bronze Age, when men became violent and greedy, she fled to the stars. But she fled to the stars, where she appears as the constellation Virgo, holding the scales of justice, or Libra. European pastoral literary tradition often depicted nymphs and shepherds as living a life of rustic innocence and peace set in Arcadia, a region of Greece that was the abode and center of worship for their tutelary deity, goat-footed Pan, who dwelt among them, which we just seen the goat god, right? Now, looking at Saturn, Saturn was the god in ancient Roman religion and the character in Roman mythology who was described as the god of time, generation, disillusion, abundance, wealth, agriculture, periodic renewal, right? And to renew, you have to destroy to rebirth, and liberation, liberty, right? Saturn's mythological reign was depicted as a golden age of abundance and peace. After the Roman conquest of Greece, he was conflated with the Greek titan Kronos. Saturn's consort was his sister Ops, whom he fathered Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, Juno, Ceres, and Vesta. Saturn was especially celebrated during the festival of Saturnalia, which is Christmas. Each December, perhaps the most famous of the Roman festivals, a time of feasting, role reversals, free speech, gift giving, and revelry. And we have the free speech, right? Executive order. It's just so crazy. The Temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum housed the state treasury and archives of the Roman Republic and the early Roman Empire. The planet Saturn and the days of the week Saturday are both named after and were associated with him. According to Varro, Saturn's name was derived from Satis, right, meaning sowing, even though his etymology is problematic from the viewpoint of modern linguistics. For while historically motivated vowel-linked alternations do occur in Latin roots, the long A of Saturnus in particular remains unexplained with this etymology, as also because of the epigraphically attested Saturnus. Nevertheless, it does reflect an original feature of the god. Perhaps a more probable etymology connects the name with the Etruscan god Satyr, and place names such as Satria, an ancient town of Latium, and Satre Palus, a marsh also in Latium. This root may be related to Phytonym Satyrea, like Satis, however, Satyrea Palus, and probably also Satria, as indeed apparently close related to satricum, and also have a short A in the first syllable. Now, knowing all of this that you know, putting all of this together, the golden age of Saturn, astrologically governed by Saturn, called Chronos, was associated with the ravaging effects of time. He's also associated with death and the end of our time on Earth. Saturn's reign is associated with the golden age. First of all the deathless gods who dwell on Olympus made a golden race of mortal men who lived in the time of Chronos when he was reigning in heaven. And they lived like gods without sorrow of heart, remote and free from toil and grief. Miserable age rested not on them, but with legs and arms never failing, they made merry with feasting beyond the reach of all evils. When they died, it was as though they were overcome with sleep. And they had all good things, for the fruitful earth, unforced, bare them fruit abundantly and without stint. They dwelt in ease and peace upon their lands with many good things, rich in flocks and loved by the blessed gods. But after earth had covered this generation, they were called pure spirits, daemons, hagnoi, dwelling on the earth, the epikathenoi, and are kindly delivering from harm and guardians of mortal men, the angels, right? For they roam everywhere over the earth, clothed in a mist, and keep watch on judgments and cruel deeds, the givers of wealth. For this royal right also they received. In the beginning was the golden age when men of their own accord was without threat or punishment, without laws, maintained good faith, and did what was right. The earth itself was without compulsion, untouched by the hoe, unfurrowed by any share, produced all things spontaneously. It was a season of everlasting spring. As we continue to transition into the Aquarian age, it will be helpful to remember that Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. The order and regulation inspired by Saturn are the vehicle to break free of restrictions as inspired by Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius. The two go hand in hand, and together they can help bring us to bring about the next golden age. So how about that? The traditional ruler of Aquarius, which we are entering into the Aquarian age, is Saturn. So this talk of the golden age, it's probably more real than people can even imagine. You know, more real than people can even imagine. And I hope that the fallen angels have destroyed everything, jabbed or being controlled in the afterlife. Well, you don't know if that's correct or incorrect. You honestly don't. I mean, that's your opinion, just like my opinion. And I'm not saying it isn't that way at all. I was just presenting something that was inverse to the traditional way it's presented, because honestly, I think everything in this world is upside down. So if religion is producing one thing one way, when I look at the scriptures, it's almost like, well, who was their God? You know, Christ said their father was the father of lies, which would be Satan, Saturn. You know, and if Aquarius, we're that fifth and final race, the age of iron, we're in the Aquarian age, the ruler is Saturn, and we're now entering a golden age again. I mean, are we in the last days? Is this it? And does it end with this Lucifer archetypical entity or Satan archetypical entity essentially using AI through quantum computing as a conduit, a vessel to finally conquer and enslave humanity once and for all? And has it already happened? And since there is no such thing as time, and time is an illusion, Is this why prophecies and shit like that all seem to refer to what's happening now? And there's nothing new under the sun. We've already been conquered, and we're just coming to the end of the story. And it just repeats over and over. So it's already happened. There's no such thing as the past and the present, or in the past and the future. You know, it really makes you wonder. And like I said, the whole AUAI and, you know, the Yod Hey Vod Hey, the hands nailed, feet nailed, right? Nailed to the cross, right? The cross, the X, the hex, the, you know, the hexagram, which is the North Pole of Saturn. Remember the Saturnian black cube? You know? We see it all over the fucking place. It's all through our religions. It's all through our symbolism. You know, I just asked you the question, you know, to consider the possibilities and to consider that maybe, just maybe, you know, things are a lot more serious than we think. And that this is a time to truly pay attention to what's going on. And why people continue to worry about spilling their opinions and euphemisms over into the internet day in and day out. Like anybody gives a fuck anyways. Because everybody thinks they're right. Because all of the algorithms reinforce their ideas back to them, right? Because nobody can hear a dissenting voice or anyone disagree with them, because we're all these perpetual narcissists and, you know, self-absorbed, egotistical, you know, fucking maniacs that don't know how to love one another, let alone love ourselves. We have this poisoned version of spirituality through the New Age. It's all mind controlling, propaganda, brainwashing, programming, everything being emitted through frequency to co-opt you and subject you to this system. It's like this digital enslavement has already began. It's like, has it already happened? And is there any escape? You know, feels like the empire has already won, you know. But if we trust what the Bible says and a lot of the prophecies, maybe it's only as real as we make it. You know, and it's what we believe to be true. And it's how we feel about it emotionally that attracts it or repels it from us. And it's our belief that creates our reality, even though there is a collective reality as well. So people can say, I create my own reality. No, you don't. You also live in a shared reality. It's total delusion to think you create your own individual reality, because you do not. Otherwise, everybody's reality would be according to yours. You may create a large part of your experience, but you do not create your own reality. We have a shared collective reality, you know. And the toxic positivity that you see now, where people's like, I can't look at that. It's fear and da-da-da-da. And it's like, it's just people burying their head in the sand and using spirituality as the crutch to do so, you know. Well, that's your opinion on what's exactly true. And I believe it is. Everything is paradoxical. So it is true and it's all false at the same time. That is how duality works. So, but I just want to leave you guys with all of this to kind of think about and wrap your heads around. You know, hopefully you've enjoyed tonight's presentation. Hopefully it gives you something to think about. I would love to hear your comments and what you believe, you know, and what your thoughts are and your opinions are on this tonight. Please leave it in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys enjoyed tonight's video, consider donating, supporting the channel. Like I said, I had a I got fucked really bad on Patreon just recently. So, caused a real big financial strain. So if you guys want to donate support, it would be greatly appreciated for those who do. You can do that. PayPal.me/the Best Damn Podcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, or join me over on Patreon, patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. Or you can donate through Facebook, and it's Facebook Messenger and Facebook Messenger Pay, and it's facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast. And everybody who donates, who has and who will, just big ups and big thanks. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Honestly, you have no idea how much it helps me when you guys give, and just how grateful I am for it. Please make sure to hit the thumbs up. If you're watching this now or you're watching this later, it helps with the algorithms. Like I said, comment also helps with the algorithms. Share this to your social media, your Facebook, your Instagram, your X account, all of it, guys. Follow me Instagram and Facebook at Best Damn Podcast and Twitter at The Real Best Damn. I will be premiering this on both Facebook accounts, all the YouTube channels. I want to ask everybody to go to I got one of my YouTube channels reinstated. It's just my name, John Keane. It's youtube.com, John Keane 33. Go subscribe. I'm at 720 subscribers or something like that. I'm trying to hit 1,000. So hopefully I can get one of my YouTube channels monetized again, because I've been demonetized on everything. Also check out the backup channel, Best Damn Podcast 2. It's youtube.com, Best Damn Podcast. And the main channel is youtube.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. And you can also follow me on TikTok at the Best Damn Podcast. Thank you to a fantastic show. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Amy VR, Elephant Tusks, Deborah Trudeau, Jeff Johnson, Ike Remotely, Chrono Crucified, BDP, Paula Hawk, Graceful Heart, Claudette Malespina, Daniel Phillips. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. And I feel like we did put together a good one tonight, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. So like I said, thumbs up, subscribe, click the notifications bell, Melopedia Britannica. Nice to see you too. If you guys would like to book a personal tarot reading or astrology reading, text 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. Donate, links in the description. Share, thumbs up, comment, subscribe. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Y'all have an awesome week. Peace.